assembled our usual cast of characters. From New York to points beyond, we're ready.
This is the strongest and deepest draft I've ever been associated with. These kids will play on Sunday.
You see the face on the TV screen, coming at you every Sunday. See the face on the billboard, well, that man is me. On the cover of the magazine, there's no question why I'm smiling. You buy a piece of paradise, you buy a piece of me. I'll get you everything you wanted, I'll get you everything you need. You don't need to believe in hereafter, just believe in me.
Your wallet sucks. That's why we invented the Ridge wallet. Hey, I'm Daniel, one of the founders of Ridge. My dad and I realized that most wallets are falling apart, stuffed to the max, and barely fit in your back pocket. So we set out to create something better. After years of trial and error and perfecting the design, we launched the Ridge wallet. Ridge is built to last a lifetime. It's made from high quality materials and is the perfect balance of modern style, premium materials, and durability. And the best part is it fits comfortably in your front pocket, so you can easily slide it in and out.
With cast straps, AirTag attachments, and our brand new tracker card.
You can stay connected and know where your wallet is at all times.
And most importantly, we've launched our new Built for Life warranty, which means if you ever lose your wallet or have it stolen, we'll replace the whole thing, no questions asked.
The wallet blocks RFID and can hold 1 to 15 cards in cash, all while remaining as slim as possible. They come in over 50 styles and colors like carbon fiber, leather, and official NFL licensed designs. And for a limited time, you can shop our sale and see why millions say this is the best wallet they've ever owned. You can try the Ridge today and return it within 99 days. No questions asked. That's our guarantee. Find the perfect gift at ridge.com.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform. Describe what you want, and watch it take shape. You can plan, customize, and expand in any direction. From tools built for one, to platforms ready for many. From passion projects to enterprise-grade systems. Everything is built in and ready to launch. It's a new world of creation, where you can go as far as your imagination takes you. Can you imagine it? Let's make your dream a reality, right now.
NFL Draft in New York, the 57th annual selection meeting of the National Football League. Thanks to our friend Phil Collins, there is no jacket required for the guys that are about to become members in the National Football League. Inside at the Marriott Marquis, we're ready to rock. Hello once again, everybody. I'm Chris Berman, and welcome to the oldest established permanent floating crap game in New York. Now, that's a line out of a song in Guys and Dolls, one of the great musicals of our or any other time, which coincidentally is reopened on Broadway about 2 blocks from where we are right now at the Marriott Marquis. There are 28 guys, if you will, 28 teams in the NFL. Today is the day they have a chance to select their dolls, who will be the best looking and who will come out poorly dressed. We shall find out as our coverage goes for the next 5.5 hours live. The first guy on the block, the Indianapolis Colts, who have a chance to pick 2 pretty good-looking dolls. Chris Mortensen is in Indianapolis right now, and the Colts have been kind of on the clock for a while here. Mort, you reported a little while ago, Steve Entman, Quentin Coriat, just about done deals. Anything new out of Colts headquarters?
Well, Chris, Quentin Coriat just walked into the Colts headquarters with his agent, Steve Zucker, so they're getting ready to sign their contract as the number 2 pick of the Colts. The number 1 pick, Steve Entman, his agent is here, Marvin Demoff. Entman has agreed to a deal. We hear about 4 years, $9 million, a $4 million signing bonus, which I think the happiest guy out of this whole thing might be Reggie White of the Philadelphia Eagles. He's a free agent after this year, Chris.
Well, Steve Emtman is probably pretty happy as well, and we know the Colts are very, very happy because all of a sudden they have a chance to improve their defense in a hurry with these two guys. The Washington Redskins, I mean, do they really need to improve themselves? All they did was roll in the Super Bowl and beat everybody else. They were the best team in football last year, but they have 2 first-round picks, and Mort, they want to move up even higher than the 6th overall selection. What's brewing with the Skins?
They would love to move up to that number 4 spot, the Redskins would, to take Desmond Howard, because they know Green Bay has their sights on Howard. That's not a done deal, but there's going to be a lot of jockeying around because Sean Gilbert is kind of a wild card here. He falls to the Rams, but who knows? Maybe he slips more.
All right, Mort, we'll check in with you and see what happens, as we know that Indianapolis is a buzzing place right now, that's for sure. All right, let's welcome some of our cast of characters. I think you know these faces, you know these voices, and if you don't, in the next 5.5 hours, they become members of your family. Joe Theismann, Tom Jackson, Mel Kiper, as we sit and analyze what the Indianapolis Colts are about to do, and that is to take a 1-15 ball club, despite the fact that they have a new head coach who's an offensive guru in Teddy Marchibroda. Yet he's going defense, defense, defense. Tommy applauds it. Do you, Joe?
Absolutely, Chris. You know, as a quarterback, you have to have people to stop the other team from scoring. So obviously, if you get defensive players, it makes your job a whole lot easier on the other side of the ball. Last year, or 2 years ago, they made the commitment. They got George. They got the quarterback they were looking for. He's the guy that's going to handle the offensive side of the ball. I talked to Ted Marchibroda this week. He's very pleased with the progress Jeff George is making in that system offensively. But defensively has got to be the way that Teddy's going to go. This draft and Ted Marchibroda's reign as coach of the Colts will be looked upon very, very critically, because this is the first decision that he gets to take part in. And it's very important that he makes the right choices. And for him, the right choices are definitely defensive players.
I'll tell you what, it's unusual that a team has the first 2 picks of the draft. This is only the second time it's ever happened. The Colts having it this year. The old Chicago Cardinals drafted quarterback King Hill and running back John David Crow, 1-2, back in 1958. Emtman and Coriat is the only other time that will happen. Of course, the man presiding over the proceedings here in New York, the commissioner of the NFL, Paul Tagliabue, and he has the cards from the Colts to make it official. The walk up to the podium, here he is.
Good morning. Welcome to the National Football League's 57th annual selection meeting. The selection meeting is now underway. The Indianapolis Colts have the first 2 choices, and so they will have 30 minutes on the board to make those choices.
Well, I'll tell you what, the cards are coming up, but if you're the Colts and you're paying millions and millions and millions of dollars to these 2 guys, I take my 30 minutes. You burn your 30 minutes, but they won't take that long.
They burned 30 minutes. They burned 30 million is what they did.
Well, how will they pay for that phone call now after paying these 2 contracts?
Collect.
You love these guys, Tommy, Emtman and Coriat.
Yeah, I think the key to the game, you look at the Indianapolis Colts last year, a lot of problems offensively because of injury, but this is a team that had 29 sacks on the year. What you get from these 2 players, and I don't think they could have missed even if they had chosen Sean Gilbert, you get very aggressive guys, great attitudes, and Quentin Coriat is not only this great hitter, he's also a great rusher.
He can play inside or outside, and so can this man, Paul Tagliabue. Now, maybe they're going over Quentin Coriat, the pronunciation. Steve Emtman, see, that's Val Pinchback on the left, Greg Mello Aiello on the right, and Emtman, E-M-T-M-A-N. They have 2 picks, and I tell you what, there's some excitement brewing in Indy.
The Indianapolis Colts' first choice is Steve Emtman, defensive end, University of Washington. The Indianapolis Colts' second choice, obtained from Tampa Bay, is Quentin Coriat, linebacker, Texas A&M.
Emtman and Coriat. defensive tackle extraordinaire, linebacker extraordinaire, now drafted by the Indianapolis Colts. You saw Steve Emtman with his family and friends, the Lombardi and Outland Trophy winner, and every play, Mel, he's a monster.
Probably the most productive player in the draft overall, Chris. Clear-cut #1 guy. You see him here stuffing the run, collapsing the pocket, getting after the quarterback. I remember talking to Buddy Ryan, former Eagle coach, early in the year. Buddy said this was the best player in the country, the guy that really excited him as far as future pro potential. Excitable individual, comes to play, hardest worker on the football team in practice. And when you're investing all this money, you want a guy who's a hard worker, very disciplined, and Steve Emtman brings not only production to the table, but that great attitude which could carry over to the rest of his teammates at Indianapolis, a team that needs an infusion of winning attitude considering they're coming off that 1-15 year.
And you take a look at Steve live right now. We're going to be talking to Steve in a moment because, I mean, what did you work to this moment being the first overall pick in the draft? Tell you what, it's not bad being #2 either, and he may try harder. Quentin Coriat, linebacker, Texas A&M, inside linebacker, but Cornelius Bennett went inside this year with the Buffalo Bills, so he's got outside skills as well, Mel.
Brings that versatility and very, comparable to Bennett. That's why March Broda, I think, wanted these two guys. You see Coriat here, a guy who can move around, get after the quarterback in pursuit, tremendously physical player, and a guy that's certainly going to very much upgrade a porous Colt defense. So these two picks, you saw this game Thursday night on ESPN when he just destroyed the wide receiver here, one-on-one hit. This guy, another guy, comes to play, an enforcer, which changes the whole chemistry of your defense when you're bringing a guy like Emtman and a guy like Coriat to team with a John Hand, a Dwayne Bickett, a Jeff Harrod. Now all of a sudden your front seven on the Indianapolis Colt football team is pretty good and gives them a chance to build on that throughout the rest of this great draft.
You know, it's not often the teams in the AFC East are starting to worry about the Colts, but I talked to a couple of teams this weekend in the division, and no matter how it shook down, Emtman and Coriat, Emtman and Gilbert, they're definitely doing the right thing. I wish they didn't do the right thing. Why couldn't they trade these picks? Tommy, you know a little bit about linebacking. Coriat, they can really move him around. He can create havoc, can't he, with opposing offense?
Yeah, Chris, he is not strictly an inside linebacker. Quentin Coriat can do a lot of things for you. He's a great run stopper, gets back in the zones. You saw his hitting ability there on the tape. The other thing is Quentin Coriat has the knack of getting to the passer. I think that was a great thing I saw when I watched him on film. And the other thing that impressed me was his closing speed when he's going after the football. He has great closing speed.
So all of a sudden, the Indianapolis Colts
have a front seven.
Starting to build. That's right. They will be no pushover, at least defensively. The Rams, who need big-time defensive help as well, they're on the clock. We think it's Sean Gilbert. We'll be back to tell you who in a moment. Maybe a gray day in Manhattan, but it's not a gray day for Steve Emtman, the first selection in the 1992 draft. For the second straight year, a defensive lineman has been the first overall pick and the 9th time overall since the merger of the AFL. If you're wondering and keeping score at home, Bubba Smith by the Colts in '67. Walt Patulski never made it really with the Bills. The twos with the Oilers, Too Tall and Leroy Selman. Need we say more about the ability of those two gentlemen? Other first-round picks that were defensive linemen, Kenneth Sims never really panned with the Pats. I'd say Bruce Smith has with the Bills. Russell Maryland came on strong late last year with the Cowboys, and now Steve Emtman with the Colts. The Rams selection is up. They've got about 9 minutes to go, but that's not just any phone. That's the Rams phone. So you can be sure that he's talking to perhaps Chuck Knox, who certainly knows that he needs some defensive help. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But with Sean Gilbert on the phone, this is it's not exactly going out on a limb to say that Gilbert will be the 3rd overall selection, and he'll be picking a great pick by the Los Angeles Rams. So let's go back to Seattle, Washington, where Steve Emtman got some very good news earlier this morning. You remember the Indianapolis Colts. Congratulations. I know, Steve, for a while you were sending out signals that you weren't interested in Indianapolis. You sound like you're a lot more interested now. Why the change?
Well, those were never from me. I never sent anything out. I've always been happy to be a Colt, and I'm extremely happy right now. I couldn't be happier.
The Colts are totally different from the team that you just played for, the national champions, Washington Huskies. Now you're going to a team that is 1-15. Does that challenge appeal to you, kind of helping a team that's been downtrodden and helping them move their way up the ladder?
It really appeals to me. I was 6-5 my first year here, and now we're 12-0, and hopefully I can play a part in doing the same thing in Indianapolis.
Steve, we're going to come back to you in just a moment. The Rams are going to make their selection. The card is up with the commissioner. So now let's check. We anticipated Sean Gilbert, who certainly got the phone call. And Chuck Knox, remember now the new coach of the Rams. When he was last with the Rams, he had guys like Merlin Olsen and Deacon Jones on the front four. Now he's got guys like Alvin Wright and David Rocker. He likes Sean
Los
Gilbert.
Angeles Rams, with the 3rd pick in the draft, select Sean Gilbert, defensive end, Pittsburgh. Cincinnati is next up.
All right, so Sean Gilbert, we go defense, defense, defense to start this draft. And by the way, about half of the 28 first-round picks will probably be, could very well be either defensive line or defensive back, something to keep track of. Let's get back now to Seattle with Steve Entman. And Steve, you grew up in Cheney, Washington. For those in the country that aren't familiar with that, that's in the eastern portion of the state where the Seahawks used to train. Now, you tell me your idol is not a defensive player at all, but a pretty good wide receiver with the Seahawks. Tell me about that.
Well, I don't know. When I was growing up, I always went up and watched Steve Largent play, and I kind of idolized the guy because he didn't have, he didn't have all the athletic ability, but he really made do for what he had, and he became a great player by working really hard.
Well, hard work is certainly what you're all about. Joining us now from Indianapolis on a three-way hookup now is Jimmy Irsay, general manager of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Jimmy, obviously you've spoken to Steve before. Now you get to do it video-wise. You guys, you don't have to negotiate on our air here, Jimmy, but tell me what went through your mind early when there were signals that Entman didn't want to be a Colt. Now that you got him, tell me what you're feeling right now.
Well, we're ecstatic, Chris. I think some of those things that were out there as rumors, I think were unconfirmed, and we really never had that message from Marvin Demoff, his agent, or from Steve, and meeting Steve myself out in Seattle, and when he came out to Indianapolis, it always went well, and we've always gotten along.
Jimmy, hold on a second, and Steve, hold on. We get a trade up at the podium. This may be Washington moving up to the 4 spot to take Cincinnati's selection. We shall see. Let's go up to the podium, and I'll tell you, there will be a lot of moves today with 5 teams having 2 first-round picks. Jim, Steve.
Okay, we have a trade involving the pick that is on the clock. The Cincinnati Bengals have traded this choice, the 4th choice in the first round, and their 3rd choice with a 58th choice overall to the Washington Redskins. Redskins have traded the first-round choice they obtained from the San Diego Chargers, the 6th overall, their choice in the first round, the 28th overall, and their 3rd choice in this draft, the 84th overall. Once again, Cincinnati has traded their 1st and 3rd choices in this draft to Washington for San Diego's 1st choice in this draft, Washington's 1st and 3rd choices in this draft.
All right, so the Redskins are now picking 4th. The Bengals now picking 6th. We'll clean up the rest of it. Jimmy, let's go back to you. The top 2 picks in the draft, that's a lot of money to lay out. Was there any thought at all to bail one of the picks, or is this kind of a statement that the Colts are making to their fans that we're doing the best we can to get the best team?
Well, we're ecstatic with the 2 picks, Chris. We really didn't consider trading them. I think if someone would have offered us something that was something that we couldn't turn down, we would have considered that. But I think you went with defense, and we really feel these 2 individuals can come in and make our defense just better than average. Definitely
Jimmy,
much better.
Anything you want to say to Steve Entman? I mean, he's not there. You'll see him very shortly. Anything you want to add that you didn't talk about last night or this morning?
Well, we talked a few minutes ago, and he gave me his requests, on how we need to change the weight room and bring a few things in. So as an ex-weightlifter to another weightlifter right now, Tom, I just want to say we're getting more weights brought in, and Tom Zapanzik's waiting for him as I speak.
Steve, anything you want to say to Jimmy? It's your world today.
This is great to be a Colt.
Those are the best words you could hear, Jimmy. Steve Entman, Jimmy Irsay, congratulations. Hopefully a marriage that will be very long and very fruitful for you, the Colts, and a player that people compare to the likes of Merlin Olsen, Bob Lilly, Dan Hampton, Ray Childress. Those are pretty big names. Good luck, Steve. Good luck, Jimmy.
Thanks a lot.
Washington has selected.
All right, here's
Green
Washington.
Bay now on the clock.
We need to hold on a second.
Washington has made their choice, and you got to think it's for the Heisman Trophy winner.
With the fourth pick in the draft obtained by trade, the Washington Redskins select Desmond Howard, wide receiver from Michigan.
And there's Desmond at home in Cleveland. He's a member of the Super
Green
Bowl
Bay is
champs.
now on the board.
Heisman Trophy winner going to the Super Bowl champs. The rich just continue to get richer. Because I tell you, the Redskins really need another tough wideout and a tough return man, don't they, Joe?
Well, you know, Chris, the Redskins are just a team that struggled along through this last year, barely eking into the playoffs, obviously barely maintaining a championship caliber play. They're really looking. Each one of their receivers, Sanders, Clark, and Monk, are all either at their 30s or getting close to it. It's the perfect opportunity to put another fast speed receiver. They do not expect Desmond Howard to come in and play right away, which I'm sure is fine with him. He'll spot that fourth receiver spot. He can do a great job for him returning kicks. This just solidifies Washington's position to give them an opportunity to move on and just constantly fill in the little pieces. I would love, Charlie Casserly, if you're listening, I will sign as the 9th quarterback. Just let me go out and throw the ball to all 4 of those guys just once. I'd love to be a QB with Desmond Howard being added to that bunch.
Might need 3 or 4 quarterbacks to
why
throw all of
not?
that. Now, Desmond Howard, Mel, you compare him favorably in many categories to Rocket Ismail, who would have been the first pick overall last year.
I think he is, Chris. I think when you look at Desmond Howard, you see a guy who has great speed. He might not run a 4.25 like the Rocket, but certainly good enough at 4.45, extends his body to make that acrobatic catch. The thing that scouts told me was he shows up every week. And in every game, he made an impact play. He never had a game where somebody took him out of the action. Washington tried to, and they were effective to a certain extent. But overall, you see him running reverses here, a guy who can just do it all. And here you're getting a player for a team like the Redskins who can feed and fit into that posse very well. Sanders had a down year last year. They need somebody. Art Monk can't go on forever. And Desmond Howard, certainly ideal for the Redskins. And interesting thing here in the whole trade possibility, the Redskins moved up in the 3rd round from the 84th pick all the way up to the 58th pick. So in reality, when you look at this, they moved up those 2 spots because they wanted to get ahead of the Green Bay Packers. Mike Holmgren was sold on Desmond Howard. He wanted Howard to start building that Packer offense up, generate some excitement. So they knew they had to go from 6 to 4. Cincinnati moves and picks up the 28th pick. But the key for the Redskins is they move from the bottom of the 3rd round to near the top of the 3rd round, which will help them gain a better player at that point.
This note, this is the highest that a defending Super Bowl champion has ever picked. The 4th spot overall, the highest that they have ever picked in the 26 years that they've had the Super Bowl and gone into the draft. So the Washington Redskins breaking ground, and Desmond Howard is a guy that they can think will help their ball club a couple of years down the road. What a luxury to have if you're the champ. We'll be back. Back in New York, and already we've seen a whole lot of shaking going on, that's for sure. The Colts have their two men, the Rams have Sean Gilbert, and the Super Bowl champions have drafted the Heisman Trophy winner, Desmond Howard. We are not alone here in New York, that's for sure. In another part of the room, we've got every corner of this room covered. We've got Chris Fowler and the gang, and they're with a guy who's pretty happy right now. Chris?
All right, Chris, across the ballroom, Mike Gottfried, of course, our college football primetime analyst, and a guy he recruited to Pittsburgh, Sean Gilbert, the newest Ram. Congratulations. Your general feeling, because last night your agent thought the deal might be done with the Colts. You found out this morning it's the Rams.
Well, there was always a speculation of it. I never really placed myself with any specific team. I know that everything's out in the open, and you have to wait until the decision's made, which was today.
Mike, you know what a dominant player he was at Pittsburgh. You recruited him there. Talk about his strengths as a player and maybe project Sean into the NFL.
Well, the great thing is when you recruit a player like Sean, it's a great feeling for me. I'm proud of him. And Sean Gilbert is an outstanding player. Chuck Knox got Cortez Kennedy at Seattle a couple years ago. He gets the same type of player here. You see Sean Gilbert on the inside against Minnesota. He's got a great pass rush from the inside. He's a bull rusher, but he also plays the run well. But where I think they get the bonus, if you want to play Sean Gilbert outside, you see him on the interception here, he's a good athlete. He can go outside, he can play inside. You got 2 for 1, and he can, in a 4-3 front, I think his best spot is the defensive end spot.
Well, the Rams certainly need pass rush help. Only 17 sacks last year, dead last in the NFL. Do you have a preference where you'd like to play? Is rushing the passer what you'd like to bring to that team?
Making the Rams the best team defensively as possible.
Any doubts in your mind at all? You're ready for this level of competition? Only a year and a half of college football?
No doubt. To be a man, you have to beat the man.
I think I can get him to go buy me a Coke after this now.
All right, thanks very much. Congratulations again, the newest Ram. Let's go back across the ballroom to Chris.
All right, guys, thank you. And the Rams defensive, we told you once upon a time when Chuck Knox was there in the early 70s, Deacon Jones, Merlin Olsen. Well, it's a little bit different. Kevin Green can play, but they really had big-time defensive problems last year. And, Tommy, you just think about Sean Gilbert in there. He'd help any football team. Rams really need him. He'll be a big spark plug, should start immediately.
Well, Chris, this is a defensive line that accounted for only 7 sacks, the defensive line last year. Sean Gilbert is not only a great pass rusher, but as you saw on the tape, this kid is a great athlete at 330 pounds.
All right, the Green Bay Packers are up next, Tommy, and along with the Cincinnati Bengals, and you would think it's the 2 defensive backs coming, Troy Vincent, Terrell Buckley. Probably Buckley to the Packers. That's our guess. It's still our guess as the pack.
The Green Bay Packers have selected Terrell Buckley, defensive back, Florida State. Cincinnati is now on the board.
Terrell Buckley now becomes, in the first 5 picks, the 4th of 5 underclassmen to go in this draft. Now, the Packers had an interesting situation, Mel, because there was some difference of opinion, but not an argument here. I mean, Mike Holmgren, an excellent offensive guru from the 49ers, obviously he's interested in Desmond Howard. The Skins were scared of that. They also are very interested, though, in Terrell Buckley, because Buckley comes in right away and helps them, and they liked him because of his maybe return. They liked him over Vincent, although that's really a tough call.
It is a tough call. You look at Terrell Buckley, he brings that added dimension to you. You're a guy that gambles a lot, but when he picks that pass off, he goes the distance, outstanding punt returner in the Darrell Green mold, and a guy that will fit in well with the Green Bay Packers. Here's a team that went out on plan B and signed Lewis Phillips. Last year, they drafted Vinnie Clark in the first round. The year before that, they drafted Leroy Butler from Florida State in round 2. Here's Buckley, intercepting a pass, and you see his ability in the open field, these moves. He's almost like a running back here in the open field, Deion Jr., as we said last night. And that's the dimension. Here is a punt returner. He's not only a defensive player, but an offensive weapon who can put 6 points on the board for you. And when you bring that kind of ability to a team, he's tough to pass up at this point. Obviously, Troy Vincent right up there. You see him intercepting a pass here in the first quarter. First series for Michigan against Elvis Grbac. That turned the tables on Michigan and allowed Florida State to pull away on their way to a one-sided victory in a key game early in the year. So you can see that impact capability. If this guy gets a little more consistent, settles down, doesn't gamble quite as much, he has definite future Pro Bowl ability, and that's why you take a guy this high. You have to have aspirations and feelings that this guy will be a dominant corner in that Darrell Green mold, and obviously Ron Wolf, the Packers, feel that way.
I tell you what, the Packers still may have wanted Buckley, whether they made the deal ahead of them to get Desmond Howard or not. One of the best kept secrets, guys, last year was that the Packers had a pretty good defense. They ranked 10th overall in the National Football League. That's pretty good for a team that's 4-12. Now, Buckley fits right in, and he can make big plays for him.
Well, there's no question about it, Chris. I mean, you know his return ability. What I like about him is he has great ability to get out and make plays. Mel has referred to that. Holmes, in particular, is the guy you have to look at. He's 34 years old. Terrell is going to be projected right now somewhere into that secondary. What's going to be key, though, for the Packers is they cannot get into the situation that other teams have gotten into with their first-round picks. They must sign Terrell Buckley. They must get him into camp so that he can fit into their plans and start contributing right away. To draft him in this spot and sit around and not have him would do absolutely no good for the Packers in that secondary.
The Bengals are up.
With the 6th pick in the draft, the Cincinnati Bengals select David Klingler, quarterback, Houston.
The first curveball of the morning has been hit by the Bengals. So there's where David Klingler goes. My goodness. There's Lee Steinberg, the agent of David Klingler in Newport Beach, California, and I think they are shocked. Certainly Boomer Esiason is there, and they're not looking for a quarterback right away. The Bengals are a team that, Tommy, does not exactly trot out the big bucks, yet they've taken the quarterback. Unbelievable wheeling and dealing from the team you would least expect it from.
Well, as I talked with Coach Shula a few times, you know, the indication was that they were looking defense. They knew that a lot of defensive talent would be available. This is a curveball, as you said, Chris, but I think if you look at the past couple of years, Boomer Esiason, there's been speculation that something was wrong with his arm. He's had a couple of off years. This is a guy who's going to take a little bit of time to develop as a pure drop-back quarterback, but I think it's a good move for him in the long run.
Before we get back to Klingler here, let me just say that son David Shula may have done Father Don a huge favor. Miami wants defense, and with the 7th pick, the next one, they didn't think they'd get the 5 really super players, any of them. Now they have a chance at quarterback Troy Vincent, which is perfect. And also, Klingler stays out of the division in case New England wanted. So I think the son has done his dad very proud.
You know, Chris, I'm going out to left field. We're all talking about Klingler in Cincinnati. We saw Lee sitting there. We saw David with their eyes go, oh my gosh, Cincinnati. I don't think he's going to stay in Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati took him to give them leverage with Kansas City, with Pittsburgh, and with a few other teams in this draft. So don't be surprised. And this is just the way I feel and believe. Don't be surprised that Klingler hasn't finished starting to move through the first round yet. I think it's a great opportunity to have somebody wants. The great thing that Cincinnati has done, they now have the gem. They have a gem that they can deal somewhere through this draft and say, okay, you want them? Let's start giving me some stuff over here. I wouldn't put the postage stamp on David Klingler being in Cincinnati or start mailing anything just quite yet.
We told you that there would be some intriguing moves here at the draft, and guess what? We have some. Let's go down to Craig James and find out what's going on. Craig, can you fill us in? What's the latest here?
Just as surprised as you all. Joe, that's a pretty bold statement that you made right there. Maybe using him as trade bait. It could happen. David, I don't think that you were expecting to go to Cincinnati, were you?
Gosh, it's hard to say. I'm just happy to be there. That's my home state. I couldn't pick a better place.
Now you sound like a politician at your home state.
I was born in Ohio, and just glad to be back.
Lee, how about you? You shocked?
Mind boggled. I was Mike Brown. Well, it'll be interesting. You know, we didn't really have a heavy inclination, although Dana Bible called yesterday morning and he said it might be, he said, don't count us out, because everyone was talking about Kansas City or New England, and but they've got a great offense and they throw the ball a lot, and could be real exciting. We'll be playing in Houston twice a year. Could be very interesting.
What team showed the most interest in David?
Well, we just always had a feeling that New England, Kansas City, New York Giants, a team like that, it might be, but I guess the trading has switched things around. But it's exciting to be the 6th pick in the draft.
Well, when you talk about the trading around, would it surprise you to see Cincinnati now take David and use him as bait to do something else in this draft?
You know, we really have no control over that at all, and you just don't know. I mean, my client Desmond Howard was the subject of a trade. David is the subject of a trade, so it switched both ways. I mean, Cincinnati is a great opportunity. Boomer's a great quarterback, but, you know, David...
We got to interrupt you. I think we're going back to New York now. There's somebody else up ready to make another decision.
All right, Craig, thank you. And so, well, you saw a stunned left coast, or at least in Newport Beach it was. But Joe has already thrown it out immediately. Will David Klingler remain the property of the Bengals? Will he be moving elsewhere today? You don't want to leave. We'll be back.
New England is now on the board.
Well, we're back in New York, and the Dolphins have just made their selection, but all right, I'll do it. I was going to let the commissioner do it. It's his house. I just work.
Repeating the choice. With the 7th selection choice in the draft, the Miami Dolphins select Troy Vincent, University of Wisconsin.
And there is Troy, one of 5 players here in New York. Troy Vincent, in some ways, you'll say, boy, he could have gone the 3rd or 4th pick. Now he's 7th pick. That's not a slide. That's just the way it looked. And Don Shula can't believe the gift wrap package his son David just gave to him, because in Troy Vincent, they've got 2 good safeties. There's no question about that in Miami. When corners are a problem, he's going defense, defense, defense. This is the pick that he got from Phoenix by trading last year's #1 Randall Hill to the Cardinals. Miami has 2 first-round picks. They'll pick again with the 12th slot. They'll probably get a pass rusher there. Troy Vincent, Tommy, I mean, they're comparing him to guys like Michael Haynes, guys that can throw a blanket. They don't come along very often.
Yeah, I think the key to Troy Vincent is his consistency. As Mel talked about Terrell Buckley is a guy who will make some big plays for you. He likes to take a chance. Troy Vincent from Wisconsin is a guy very steady. In fact, the thing that I think a lot of people like about this kid is his consistency on the football field. Very fluid, along the lines of a Mike Haynes or Louis Wright, a guy that I played with. He's not going to make mistakes, and you only need really one great cover corner on the field for you when you have the kind of safeties that the Miami Dolphins do.
Well, you know, Tommy, the other thing is, with Vincent there, the cornerbacks for the Miami Dolphins only had 1 interception last year, so it's very important that they get some help there. But what else is, you have to look at the style of defense that Vincent played in at Wisconsin. Not necessarily was asked to do a lot of man-to-man coverage. He's not going to be asked to do a lot of that in Miami either, so it really fits into the type of football player that he's already been. He doesn't have to make a transition and just go one-on-one with some of these receivers in the National Football League. It's going to make his slide into the secondary as an impact starter right away much easier.
So now our Super Six are gone with the addition of the quarterback. By the way, the first round selection of a quarterback by the Bengals since 1979. Boomer was a 2nd-round pick. The throwing Samoan, Jack Thompson, was a #1 pick in 1979 by the Bengals. Now, David Klingler, Mel, a run-and-shoot quarterback type. Can he read? Can he develop? Everyone that looked at him said the arm is great. How about the poise? He struggled a little for him last year.
Well, he struggled, Chris, because he didn't have an offensive line, of course, with that run-and-shoot this year. But you saw him as a junior when he really developed into a great quarterback. He has that quick release, but it's a low delivery. Teams are a little concerned about that. In addition to the fact that he did take that pounding this year, but held up, which shows that he has that toughness to really take a pounding, withstand it. He's a big, strong kid. You got to like his arm, but he has to adjust mechanically and technically to a pro offense. He's not going to the Houston Oilers. There's only really 1 run-and-shoot team left, so now all of a sudden he has to fit into the Bengals. Troy Vincent, of course, we talked about earlier, but Klingler fits in well with the Bengals. I thought Vincent would be the pick here, but you know, they go a different direction, and they allow the Miami Dolphins to acquire a guy that really should not have been here. He is certainly one of the top 2 or 3 players in this draft, in my opinion. And here's the Dolphins sitting there at 7 thinking, no way we're going to get Buckley. No way Troy Vincent. He won't be here. We're probably going to end up with Alonzo Spellman, defensive end, Ohio State, who's a gamble. And we miss out on the Big Six that we've been talking about for 2 days. And now, because of that Klingler trade by Cincinnati, allows the Dolphins and Don Shula to acquire the 1 player that he thought there was no chance would still be there at #7. So obviously Troy Vincent, a great addition to the Dolphins, and in my opinion, the steal of this draft thus far.
Yes, the Miami Dolphins couldn't believe their fortune. Joe, on a run-and-shoot quarterback coming into the pros, Andre Ware came in with huge numbers. We've yet to really hear from him. Can a guy come in to a system that isn't a run and shoot and pick it up right away, or is it going to take a while for him? Of course, with Boomer, if he stays there, he doesn't have to pick it up right away.
Well, what happens is with Boomer, for example, they rated Klingler above Boomer from his college workout, so they felt like this kid was comparable to the quarterback they had. I still don't believe Klingler's going to be there, but when you talk about the transition from a run-and-shoot quarterback to play in the National Football League, need us not forget that there was a kid out of Portland State by the name of Neil Lomax who played in the run and shoot that turned out to be one heck of a National Football League quarterback. So I don't think Klingler will have any problem whatsoever making the transition from a run and shoot college quarterback to a professional semi-drop back or drop back style of offense.
The New England Patriots are next on the board. We got to think they're going to pick the guard Ed Searcy from Miami. Let's go to Cleveland now. And the first-round pick of the Washington Redskins, the Heisman Trophy winner, Desmond Howard, is with our Andrea Kramer. Andrea.
Thank you, Chris. Poor Desmond's been sitting here saying, are they going to interview me? Finally, here we are. We have you here. Congratulations. Joe Gibbs had you on the phone. I know you were pretty excited about the selection by the Redskins. What did Gibbs say to you?
Basically, he said that they were making the trade up. They really were excited to get me, and that they...
There's 8 billion people in the world, and 8 billion ways to see it. To shape it, bend it, brighten it, light it, turn it, expand it, make it the way you want it. Because with Firefly, the world is what you make it.
Hey, Patty. I've noticed you seem to fix things around here before they even break.
No big secret. Just 3 magic words. The ServiceNow AI platform.
Oh, it's like an AI A-team.
Abracadabra.
It was going to be a fun time in Washington. I'm very happy to be going to Washington. I think it's a lovely area, and the chance to play under great veteran receivers like Art Monk and Sanders, and to learn with these guys is going to be a very good experience for me. I think that's what has helped me become a Heisman Trophy winner in Michigan, because the mentors that I had, this didn't happen overnight. So I'm very happy to go to Washington, the nation's capital.
We know that Green Bay was interested in you and Washington was interested in you, but were you surprised that Washington leapfrogged to take your pick? It's the highest that the defending Super Bowl champions have ever selected.
Yeah, I've heard that. I wasn't, I couldn't control the draft selection, so I just wanted to put myself in the most comfortable position, so whatever happens, happens. I'm glad this took place.
You have other goals going into Washington aside from just excelling on the football field. What are some of your goals?
My goals is to basically be a role model in the community and enjoy the town and try to help out as much as I possibly can.
Well, congratulations. And by the way, and I asked him about Canada, he said, we're not thinking about that right now. I don't think it's going to be much of a factor. Let's head back to Chris.
Choice on the clock. All right, Andrea and Desmond, that's a smile, as Tommy Jackson pointed out. There is a smile that of a Heisman Trophy winner that has gone to the Super Bowl champs. There is a trade right now involving the Falcons getting up in a New England spot. And we're going to get Gary Danielson is in Sewanee at the Falcons headquarters, who have 2 first-round picks. They want to move up. They're always active on draft day. Here we go again, Gary.
Yeah, their goal in the draft was to move up in this draft with those 2 number 1s. They didn't think they could get the player they wanted that late. They wanted one of those 2 cornerbacks because of the baseball success for Deion and Brian Jordan, but they wanted Bob Whitfield, and that's who they're going to take with this pick. It was their 2nd number 1 and a 2nd-round pick, and they're going to be able to take some age out of that offensive lineman with Bob Whitfield. Looks like a good pick for the Falcons, Chris.
Well, Gary, certainly this is a team that wants to put pressure on people offensively, and a guy like a Mike Ken at tackle had one of the best years he's ever had. But you mentioned the age in the line. If you're going to pressure offensively, you better have time. You certainly well know that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Mike Ken now 36 years old. Chris Hinton 30 years old. If you're going to run the run and shoot, you got to have somebody to protect the quarterback. Chris Miller had a great year last year, but they're looking down the road. This is a guy that can play 10, 12, 14 years for you at offensive tackle.
Gary, do you think that we haven't seen the last of the dealings of the Falcons? I mean, they like to move around. You were there last year. You know what happens.
No doubt about it. Another guy they covet, and they think they'll have to get in front of Pittsburgh, is Vaughn Dunbar. They're looking for a running back. You know, they've got the problems in the secondary with the 2 baseball players, but this is a team with 4 draft picks in the top 2 rounds that would like to move up and draft for need, really, is what they're trying to do in the secondary, running back, and offensive line.
All right, Gary, we'll check back with you shortly. So the Falcons have moved up in the New England spot, and here's what it is. To move up to that 8th overall slot, the Patriots get one of the Falcons' number 1 picks, the second one, number 19, a 2nd-round pick, and a 4th-round pick. New England did very well by sliding down in the draft last year. That's what they've been doing lately to build up that ball club. Speaking of trades, there's a guy who was one of the most prolific running backs in the history of the National Football League named Eric Dickerson. Began his career with the Los Angeles Rams. He's going home almost. The Colts and the Raiders have figured it out. Let's go to Indy now to Chris Mortensen and get the word on the Eric Dickerson deal. Is it all finished?
Chris, Marvin Demoff is not only the lawyer for Steve Entman, he is the lawyer for Eric Dickerson. And Jimmy Irsay told us a little while ago that he thought the Dickerson deal would happen to the Raiders for a 4th-round and 8th-round draft pick. Dickerson taking a slight pay cut, and Mr. Demoff is here now to tell us a little bit more about the Dickerson situation.
Hi, Chris. As far as I know, the Dickerson trade is being consummated right at this time for the 4th and 8th-round draft choice. And I think Eric's very appreciative of the Colts and the Raiders both giving him an opportunity to establish himself again in Los Angeles.
Now, we understand that Dickerson was willing to take a pay cut to play for the Raiders. Did he want out of Indianapolis that bad?
Well, I think Eric has always been misunderstood as money being more important to him than it really is. Football is very important to Eric, and Eric believes his best chance to have football success is with the Raiders.
Quickly on Entman, we heard a lot of things in the last 24 hours. Can you characterize the negotiations between the Colts and Steve Entman?
They were bizarre because the Colts had other interests also in dealing with Quentin Coryatt and Sean Gilbert and Troy Vincent and Vaughn Dunbar and to some degree Desmond Howard. And Steve was always their number 1 pick, but how they were going to do number 2 kept making it a very disjointed discussion for 2 days. And it finally came together this morning at 8 o'clock.
Marvin Demoff doesn't want to talk about contract numbers, but everybody knew he was going to have an impact just by his presence alone. We reported earlier it was $9 million, 4 years. No comment here on that contract. $4 million signing bonus. Steve Entman's going to be taken care of for quite a while, Chris.
All right, so we go back to the silent movies for a little bit. That was Chris Mortensen with Marvin Demoff. And what they're silent about, of course, is what kind of contract change will be involved with Eric Dickerson. He was scheduled to make $3.1 million this year with the Colts. Marcus Allen makes just over $1 million a year with the Raiders. Dickerson coming into the Raiders is not going to make $3 million with Marcus there for $1 million. How far he goes down, does Marcus get a raid out of all of it? Dickerson is a Raider. We'll be back. Back in New York, the Falcons have selected with the 8th overall pick. Here's the commissioner, Paul Tagliabue.
With the 8th choice in the draft obtained from New England by trade, the Atlanta Falcons select Bob Whitfield, offensive tackle, Stanford.
So Bob Whitfield, rated by just about every team, the top offensive lineman available. Atlanta has now moved up and taken the pick from New England, and even though that's not this year an area of need, they've decided that it will be shortly. You heard Gary Danielson talk about Mike Cann and Chris Hinton being up in their 30s. Here's the trade. So to move up from 19 to 8, to move up 11 spots, cost the Falcons a 2nd and a 4th round pick. So that's a pretty heavy price to pay unless Whitfield turns out to be a tackle as good as Mike Kent, in which case, Mel, it's a great price to pay.
I'll tell you, Chris, I don't like the deal at all for Atlanta. I think, in a deep draft like this, where you know you're going to get players down the line, to give up a second and a fourth-round pick to move up 11 spots, you already have a number one, sure. But if they're going to move up, go up to get a skilled person, not an offensive tackle like Whitfield, who, in my opinion, was maybe the 24th best player in the draft. I know some teams think highly of him, but I think he's somewhat suspect that early. And when you look at Atlanta's situation in this draft, now they lose a 2, they lose a 4. If they'd have retained that pick, they may have been able to acquire Siapeli Malamala, who played in the same conference as Whitfield, and ultimately could, in my opinion, be a better pro. I think it's far too heavy a price to pay in a great draft like this, when we're talking about depth into the 2nd through 6th round, to part with a mid-2 and a mid-4 to go up and get an offensive tackle. Granted, he has potential, but in my opinion, he's a gamble that early.
Tommy, there's been a lot of talk of Whitfield, a great player out of Stanford. Again, like some of the others in the draft coming out of you early. He is legally blind in his right eye. Does that mean that anywhere along the right side of the offensive line he couldn't play because he couldn't see well enough on the outside? Or is that something that we invent? Could that be a problem?
I don't know, Chris. I think that the Atlanta Falcons have to envision him strictly as a left tackle. I mean, that's the spot that he's always played, and that way it won't cause him a problem, because it's simply, as simply put as I can, the guy has gotten used to playing with whatever the difficulty is, so it doesn't bother him. You know, the rap on the kid, and I had a chance to watch him a little bit in one of the All-Star games on tape, is that consistency might be a problem with him. So somebody's going to have to motivate this kid to be there every single down.
Well, when he plays, he is very, very powerful.
Yes.
We know that much.
Yes.
But you mentioned the consistency. Bob Whitfield, I mean, if you can get a bookend tackle, it's not necessarily a mistake.
No, it's not. You know, I sort of disagree with Mel a little bit here. I thought New England was going to take Whitfield in this position because, see, one thing you have to understand, Harlow's about to have some more surgery on his back. So they're a little suspect in the offensive line. Now, he had it in college earlier. There's talk about him having it again. So their offensive line is not in the best shape. That's the only reason I thought that Whitfield might go there at that particular spot. He winds up going to Atlanta. Atlanta's real close, Mel, to becoming the next level of playoff contention for them. They feel like they have to protect Chris Miller, or else they're never going to be able to put the ball, put the points on the board necessary to win.
But, Joe, that's if you feel Whitfield is going to be a Pro Bowl player. I don't feel that way. I think when you look at Bob Whitfield, and I talked to Bob last week, I talked about the Aloha Bowl when Marco Coleman had 3 sacks, numerous pressures. I said, you know, what happened? Was it Coleman's moves, or what really bothered you in that game? And Bob said, hey, I just didn't feel I was up for the game. I was just kind of going through the motions out there. This is the Aloha Bowl. When you're coming out as a junior, that is your focal point, the game that you have to be super motivated. And Marco Coleman just really dominated the football game. Other games this year, he had trouble. So he doesn't show up every week with that high intensity level. And I think when you're investing all this to move up, give up a 2 and a 4 to get a guy that's very inconsistent, in my opinion, very questionable. And, I think it's a bad move. I think it's a great move for New England. You mentioned the offensive line problems. Searcy was a guy we talked about there, maybe Whitfield, but now they move down. They still get the lineman, but they pick up a 2 and a 4.
Well, we can debate that up here, but there is no debate in Sewanee because they made the move to get Bob Whitfield. Let's go back down to Gary Danielson in Sewanee and talk some Falcons. Gary?
Yeah, Chris, nobody really knows. It's all a crapshoot, I think, when you get down into this first round. And, there wasn't very many impact players in last year's first-round draft. But Ken Herrack, vice president, told us yesterday, kind of tipped his hand a little bit, telling us that they looked at the right eye problem. Even went so far as to simulate blocking drills, covering their right eye. Didn't think it was that big of a deal. I kind of have to agree with them. I mean, you could smell these defensive linemen from a half a foot. I don't know if you have to see them that good. So if he can play, he can play. I don't see the one eye being that big of a deal. Chris?
Well, the Falcons, it's something we'll keep keep track. I didn't mean to say that. Keep track of. I didn't. Keep track of this afternoon. Is what they do to address the problem, and we'll get into this, Gary. Deion Sanders, perhaps becoming more of a full-time baseball player, Brian Jordan becoming a full-time baseball player, or more succinctly, a part-time football player, an 8 to 10 week type of guy. So the Falcons used to think that they were very deep at DB. Jordan coming off a great year. Deion, we know what he does. So that's something they might have to think about.
Yeah, there's no doubt the Falcons went into this draft looking at the problem. I mean, there's their best cornerback playing baseball on the cover of SI. They knew the type of style that Jerry Glanville likes to play. Pressure the quarterback, lock his corners in one-on-one. Remember, they took the 3rd pick last year, Bruce Pickens. They got McKyer. They really can't count on Dion long-term, but I believe he'll be there for a while. They really like Buckley, but they had to address that offensive line problem also. You know, I think Ken Herrock is going to add a new tool when he goes out on the road from now on. Besides the vertical jump and the 40-yard dash, he's going to take a batting machine, give them 10 swings. If they hit one, they're going to mark them off on their list.
So they know that Bob Whitfield's not the second coming of Babe Ruth. They think he's going to play some football, that's for sure.
No, he can't hit the right field.
We'll keep that in mind. We'll get back to you later, Gary, as the draft continues from New York. The Cleveland Browns have the next selection. Back in New York, first 8 picks have been done in, under an hour, which is pretty interesting, that's for sure. But we're so far. Oh, boy, there it goes. I've talked about a no-hitter in the 2nd inning. It's a lot quicker than last year's first round, which took about 5 hours, or the equivalent of about a 14-inning baseball game. The Cleveland Browns are up, and I think now, guys, this is where the draft starts to turn. There was some thought, Joe, that they might look for a backup to Kosar and Klingler, tight end, running back. They get Belichick, a defensive guy. Now is where I think the draft takes a turn. Agree?
I do. I think the thing you have to take into consideration here is Billy Belichick, first of all, has got the blessing of Art Modell. Art Modell has made a commitment to this football team to say, we're going to go out and get big, tough, fast football players. They signed 11 Plan B guys this year. Last year, every one of their draft choices was in camp. That's responsibility of management. Art's doing his part. Now it's important that Bill takes the players on the field and gets it done. I think running back is an obvious position. Tommy Vardell may be there. But look for Cleveland to use up every second they can of this 15. They're in the enviable position that Cincinnati was before, that maybe they have a chance to deal. Let's see if we can get the deals we want, because all they want is somebody big, tough, and fast. Think of Turner and King last year. You got to look at this year's draft and say, who's there like that?
To get everybody caught up to date a little bit on what happened to the Browns last year, well, they certainly made an improvement under Bill Belichick. Let's take a quick look at Cleveland in '91.
The Natalie-clad Bill Belichick helped make the Browns one of the most improved teams in the league. He had Bernie Kosar operating a low-risk offense that saw him throw 18 touchdown passes, 9 to second-year fullback Leroy Horde. Belichick's influence on the defense was evident. The Browns forced 33 takeaways, ranking among the best in the AFC. First-round pick Eric Turner missed the first half of the season, but became a force, registering 84 tackles and 2 interceptions.
So the Cleveland Browns certainly improved in opportunistic football. They also made a big move in getting James Brooks. I mean, and that to add him, Mel, to the running back core. Kevin Mack is still there. Leroy Horde, the guy that made the most unlikely of catches all throughout the season from Kosar. But yet, could they go running back? Could they go touchdown Tommy Vardell?
I know, Joe, you're liable to lose a lunch on this with Mike Godfrey. And Mike Godfrey yesterday said, hey, Tommy Vardell's the man for the Cleveland Browns. And I can't disagree with Mike on that. I think Tommy Vardell, we talked about it yesterday for 4 hours, is a guy that is viewed by, I know Bill Walsh had said it, the best pick will be Tommy Vardell. Not necessarily as the best player, but he will be the best pick overall by the team that selects him. And, of course, the Cleveland Browns, when you look at what they really need in the backfield, Belichick wants a pounded at teams. He has Horde. You know, he had a bad year, bounced back strong last year. He also has Mack, who's kind of iffy. You don't know if he's going to show up and be as good this year. And Tommy Vardell is just a productive, dominant player. When he worked out a couple weeks ago, he had never run for the clock. That time of 4.73 estimated. The first time he ran 2 weeks ago, 4.48. Belichick, Ernie Accorsi, Mike Lombardi were out there for that workout, have been keeping a track of the situation, and evidently, from what Jack Mills has told me and Tommy tells me, the Browns are interested. But also 2 other players, tight ends, Derek Brown from Notre Dame, Johnny Mitchell from Nebraska, are there right now as well.
Man, that would add up, because think about the low-risk offense that the Browns now run with the short, dinky passes. And remember, they're used to having a guy named Ozzie Newsome to catch some balls at tight end. They don't have one now. Will they get one? Let's quickly check in with Chris Myers, who's chomping at the bit in Big D, but you got some word on the Browns, Chris.
Yeah, we're waiting for the Cowboys to happen, Chris, but the Cleveland Browns love Tommy Vardell. In fact, they've labeled him a modern-day Larry Zonka, the bruising fullback who, of course, was so dominant with the Miami Dolphins. A Cleveland official told us this morning they were blown out of the water when the Bengals selected David Klingler. That's who the Browns were eyeing, was David Klingler. Now that he's gone, in fact, Cleveland thinks that Cincinnati will deal with Kansas City still in a possible trade, sending Klingler to the Chiefs. But at this moment, the Browns are considering trading down. San Francisco has also reportedly been interested in Tommy Vardell. At this moment, they're in love with Tommy Vardell, and they'll take him with their pick unless they get a better offer and trade down. Chris?
All right, Chris, we'll check back with you. Less than 2 minutes to go on the pick by the Cleveland Browns. Very quickly, guys, you mentioned two names, Mitchell Mel and Derek Brown. Like Klingler, it may be the only quarterback to go in the first round. All of a sudden, there are two stud tight ends. They haven't been this deep, at least in the first round, for a while. Teams looking for tight ends. Maybe Giants, maybe Jets. There are several others, maybe Cleveland. This is a place where there might be some movement right now.
Well, Brown is the #1 guy right now, but Mitchell has really surged up because of his great speed. He runs a 4.6 at 262 now. He wasn't a dominant blocker, but they feel that will improve. And because of his great pass receiving ability, he's very intriguing to teams picking this early. Dallas Cowboys, I learned from Joel Siegel just now, his agent, that the Dallas Cowboys have 2 representative scouts with Dale Carter. So you have to think Dallas wants Dale Carter from Tennessee, maybe a trade-up possibility involving the Cleveland Browns here, moving down, knowing they're going to get one of those players they really want, pick up an extra choice, and here's Dallas sitting there with a defensive back, Dale Carter, that they may not win again, but will still be there at 13.
Just about 44 seconds to go on the Browns pick. The card's on the way. We will know. Let's go to the commissioner. All right, let's not go to the commissioner. There he is.
Cleveland has selected. The Seattle Seahawks are on the clock.
With the 9th choice in the selection meeting, the Cleveland Browns select Tommy Vardell, running back, Stanford.
And there he is. Touchdown, Tommy Vardell. One of the real nice stories of guys coming out this year. So Stanford has gone back-to-back here in the draft. The 8th pick to Atlanta, the 9th pick to the Cleveland Browns. Tommy Vardell, who appeared at one workout with a 3-piece suit, apologized for coming late to the workout, said he had to go down to Silicon Valley to present a computer program that he had written, and then could he change and get into workout gear. He's working out with the Browns. We'll be back.
For me, it's always about consistency. How consistent can I be no matter the circumstances, no matter what's going on around me? I take a lot of pride in being consistent and being the same person to my teammates every single day. I'm always trying to improve myself. It's not about the opponent, it's me versus me. And I think as a leader on a team, being able to be that person that everyone can look to is extremely important.
Hey, I'm Bob the Tool, and I've been mixing burritos at Pancheros for a long time. Behold the tasty ingredients rolled in our fresh pressed tortillas of golden goodness. Cilantro lime rice, beans, delicious proteins, sizzling veggies, and serious salsas. Oh, and do not sleep on our queso. And now it's about me. Whoa! Making every bite a perfect bite. Mmm, delicious. Pancheros, burritos better mixed by me, Bob the Tool.
Here's Tommy Vardell with the commissioner. Vardell, first-round draft pick of the Cleveland Browns. More on Touchdown Tommy in a moment. But now let's kick it over to Chris Fowler and company, who have an earlier first-round selection.
That's right, Chris. We have the man of many hats here. Troy Vincent has 3 Dolphin hats already. I know you're ecstatic about going down to Miami. You thought it might be David Shula with the Bengals when we talked yesterday. Instead, it's Don Shula. What about the jump up in competition? You didn't have to recover the receivers in the Big Ten that you now have to face in the AFC East with Lofton and Reed and Toon.
Well, Al Toon is somebody I always, he's from Wisconsin, and I'm always reading about him, seeing him walking around the facility. Now I know that he's in my conference. I'm going to have to play this living legend. I got my hands full.
Because Troy's a 6-foot corner that I think is going to play a long time because of your size and your ability to cover. But your toughest coverage assignment might be you're going to negotiate your own contract with your mom against Don Shula. What do you think about that?
I'm going to leave that up to my godparents and my advisors, Zachary Jones, and, I guess they'll do it,
Have you had any discussions with them? Have they made an offer? Have you talked financial terms at all with them?
Not yet, no.
Dolphins obviously a big hole at cornerback. Can you come in right in and start for this team?
Well, I hope so. I'm just going to go and do whatever I can do. If I have to just work into special teams, a nickel package, whatever.
I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I'm going to immediately start, but I'm going to work for that.
You think you're going in with a goal that you want to be the starter of the Miami Dolphins?
Oh, yes.
I guess at this moment you're pretty glad your coaches in high school convinced you to switch sports from basketball to football.
Yep, my old coach Jim Dundala a lot. He asked me in the hallway going into my senior year to come on out for the football team and help out and contribute, and it paid off.
Yeah, lucky number 7 in Miami. Let's go back now to Chris.
All right, Chris and Troy Chang, thank you very much. Troy Vincent pretty much going to negotiate his own deal. I mean, he's going to have some help, his folks, lawyer. But, Joe, now, you negotiated your own deal with Miami. Is it safe to say that it was a figure or two less on yours?
I think, the thing is, there's going to be quite a few more zeros, I think, on mine. I did choose to take my own fate in my own hands when I came out of college and try and negotiate with the Miami Dolphins. Now, we went through a negotiation process of which I was very unfamiliar with, and Coach Shula was there at the time. Joe Thomas was the GM at the time. I never had a chance to really sit down with Mr. Thomas. I did it with Mr. Robbie at that time. The fact is I really think that Troy might want to reconsider. Not that the Dolphins are not a fair organization, that he won't get a good deal, but it's always good to have a buffer in between you and the organization. Sometimes you sell yourself a little short and you wind up second guessing. Other times you get lucky and somebody maybe gives you a little bit more. But you don't necessarily want to just have control of that fate in your hands. He might want to just sit down and reconsider. There are some very good representatives available that will do a good job for him as well as the ball club. You just don't want to turn this thing into a personal confrontation, Chris.
Sounds like you're saying that you could be a personal representative.
Not me, no. I don't think the Dolphins want to talk to me.
I tell you what, the Cleveland Browns, Joe and Tommy, want to talk to Tommy Vardell. And really, although they covet him, and he could be a unique player, a fullback, this sort of speed, this sort of hands, this sort of attitude, you still, they have running backs now.
They have some, but not dependable. And when you look at Tommy Vardell, he is that dependable, productive back who has done it all for Stanford, be it running with the football, goal line, short yardage, catching the football out of the backfield. This guy is a power football player, great attitude, just stampedes people. You see him wearing number 44, John Riggins type, just a bowling ball type, just overpowers people, and a guy, like I say, that shows up every week with that same intensity level. And when you're investing an early round pick, you see speed here as well. 4.48 speed at 235 pounds. I mentioned that 4.73. It's been with his name all year. He never ran for the clock. That was an estimated time. When he ran a couple weeks ago, 4.48, 38-inch vertical jump. Bill Belichick, Ernie Accorsi, Mike Lombardi were out there at Stanford for that workout. Since that time, Tommy's been keeping me up to date, and he said all along, the Cleveland Browns have been showing a tremendous amount of interest, and it paid off today when they were able to acquire him with that 9th pick and get a player who's going to fit in very well with Belichick's offense, working in unison with Mack, with Brooks, and with also Leroy Horde.
Cleveland does have a decent history of running backs, don't they?
I tell you, when you look, Bynard was a deal that did not pay off, and they've been paying the price a little bit. But Leroy Horde was a fine pick. He had that rookie year, which was considered a bust, Chris. But he did bounce back last year and played outstanding football. And James Brooks, they were able to pay him the kind of money he wanted, nudged out Philadelphia in Plan B to acquire his services. And now you throw in a Kevin Mack, who he's the veteran that they need, along with Vardell. And now you can just keep the ball away, as what the Giants did against the Bills in the Super Bowl when Belichick was on hand. And that's the kind of football this Cleveland Brown team will be able to play this year.
Seattle Seahawks are next on the clock. I got to guess tackle Ray Roberts. That's just a guess. We'll be back to see what the Seahawks do in a moment.
And welcome back to the draft in New York City. As we rearrange some things on the set here, we're all set now. Already in the first 9 picks, actually the first 8, 5 juniors selected. As we see Steve Entman, the #1 overall, Sean Gilbert, the 2nd consecutive junior defensive lineman to go to the Rams. Desmond Howard, of course, the Heisman Trophy winner, going to the Redskins. Terrell Buckley, the cornerback, headed for the Packers. Bob Whitfield to the Falcons. So teams obviously very confident these juniors are ready to come in and start in the NFL. 6 underclassmen did start at the end of last season that were taken in last year's draft. So no doubts that these guys are ready to step in and contribute right away. Let's go back across the ballroom now to Chris Berman.
All right, Chris, thank you. We're fixing up our set here, too. A lot of things going on here as we have reached the lunch hour here in New York, but teams are lunching on their first-round picks. Mel, let's look at your board. We had that the pick 6, as we called it last night, and they are now all gone. As you move with Entman and Vincent and Howard and Coryat and Buckley. Now let's look to the next group. And if you're rating best available athlete, that's the first time that statement's been made. Mark it down, 12-15. These are your guys.
Derek Brown, tight end, Notre Dame, figures to go somewhere in this next group of 5 teams. Chet McLaughlin, a guy that has great physical ability, figures in the middle of round 1. Carl Pickens, wouldn't he look good in the Bronco uniform with their wide receiver problem? So these guys are prime athletes and very good picks in the middle, late first round. Dale Carter, I still think he'll be a Cowboy. Kevin Smith, the Dolphins, very high on him. Leon Searcy, we know the Patriots, how they feel about him. Tommy Vardell just went. Chuck Smith, a guy that's a great football player, but teams are now projecting him down a little bit because they say he's not a true linebacker. So you're going to steal Chuck Smith at a bargain point in the draft.
The Seattle Seahawks are next up, and there's about 4.5 minutes to go for their selection, and I believe offensive line, and I believe that'll be Ray Roberts. But think about what the Seahawks did, oh, by the way, last night. Yeah, you say sometimes you take these established players, and they're coming off injuries. But if you missed it, they have Keith Millard, who missed all of last year's serious knee injury with the Vikings. They got him for a second-round pick from the Vikings and a conditional the year after. They get Reuben Mays, who was a real productive running back, certainly in college, and a good one with the Saints, but he's been retired for a year, really a year and a half. They get him in a deal, too. So Seattle, think in the middle, Tommy. If Millard can play, along with Cortez Kennedy in the middle of their defensive line on a good defense.
You solidified your front 7, and Jacob Green's still on that defense.
He'll play 10 more years.
Still playing well. You know, people keep talking about the fact that Jacob Green's getting older, but he's still playing well. I think their whole situation up front is dependent on if the deal with Millard, if Millard can recover from that knee injury. He took the year off last year, so he's had a complete year off from playing now. That deal will be if he can play and be healthy.
They've got a good defense, but they've got questions on offense. To refresh your memory on the Seattle Seahawks, let's have a look. Tom Flores has left the friendly confines of the president's booth to once again return to the sidelines. And for the first time since '82, Dave Craig will not be the Seattle quarterback. It's either the untested Kelly Stoffer or the untested Dan McGuire, last year's number 1. On defense, Tom Catlin decided to stay in Seattle. That's good news for Flores, for the unheralded defense was among the best in the league in '91. So the Seattle Seahawks, an underrated defense, and you saw the veteran coach Tom Catlin who stayed. The one thing they don't have is a quarterback. They're going to start with Kelly Stoffer, but maybe look to Dan McGuire as the year goes on, the 6'8" quarterback drafted in the first round last year. If Reuben Mays can play, Joe, John L. Williams goes to a fullback. Mays at a tail. They got a young guy named Chris Warren, who the coaches like a lot. They don't have a lot on offense, but with a real good defense, if they get a running game going, they might grind out some wins.
Well, Chris Warren was the only tailback that they wound up keeping after the Plan B acquisitions were all said and done. I think with John L. wanting to go back to fullback, gives him a chance. He's not as young as he used to be. Gives him a chance to be used as the versatile back that he is. Has been to the Pro Bowl a couple of years. The important thing about this is they still need a young running back. Seattle still, I believe, has to invest in a young running back. Also, you know, Chris, you project Ray Roberts going there. I don't think there's any question that the offensive line is the first place that you start to build to protect a quarterback. I know for a fact that they want Dan McGuire to be their quarterback. That's why Chuck Knox is not coaching in Seattle anymore, because he didn't necessarily want him to be the quarterback, didn't feel he was ready yet. They got to get him ready now, and they got to do it with some offensive line help.
Well, you talked about the running back, and you look at the depth chart, and they lost some people, and it's not very deep. Although, you know, James Jones, a veteran, but John L. is certainly a productive and a Pro Bowl player, the fullback now. But Reuben Mays, how he fits into the equation will be intriguing. We have yet to see, Mel, a true running back. We saw Vardell go. You've got Vaughn Dunbar, who's out there and actually is here in New York from Indiana. You had Tony Smith, Southern Miss, along with Vardell. Those are the only 3 first-round running backs we're likely to see today?
That's it, Chris. I think when you look at Vaughn Dunbar, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are picking after Seattle, hoping that he will slide down that far. Tony Smith, I think, to Atlanta a little later in the first round.
All right, Seattle is selected, Mel, so we'll keep an eye on the running backs. Now we'll keep an eye on the commissioner.
Chris, Ray Roberts goes here, Dunbar goes to Pittsburgh.
Yes. Yes.
With the 10th choice in the selection meeting, the Seattle Seahawks select Ray Roberts, tackle, University of Virginia.
Well, every now and then you get one right. Ray Roberts, the tackle from Virginia, 6'5½", 298. What they will do, the Seahawks, is as soon as Roberts is ready, they drafted in the first round a guy they think is a very good player at left tackle a couple years ago, Andy Heck. Roberts would go to left tackle, and Andy Heck would move over to guard to give them the power side to run. Tell me about Roberts, Mel.
Well, he's a steady player. He really played well throughout his career, pass blocking, run blocking. They were a very balanced offense at Virginia. Matt London, of course, the quarterback. And you see Roberts, the way he just handles people at the line of scrimmage. There he was neutralizing Marco Coleman. Here he's working against Chuck Smith in the Senior Bowl. So a guy who's been experienced going up against top players, one-on-one situations, and certainly a guy that, after you get a pass Whitfield, and there was a lot of people around the league that thought, hey, Roberts may be long-term a better player than Bob Whitfield. You're getting him here at the 10th spot. I'm sure there was some debate, though, with the Seahawks as to whether you go tight end Derek Brown or Ray Roberts, and certainly with only Andy Heck and Brian Millard coming back, they really had no other recourse. But, Derek Brown's still a guy, very tough to pass up for these teams coming up in the first round.
One other thing to mention about the Seahawks, they now lead the league in Millards, Brian Millard and Keith Millard, something to keep track of. It's always very important to know that. The Washington Redskins led the league in everything last year, and guess what? They lead the league in providing pressure on offense now that they've drafted Desmond Howard. A guy that knows a little bit about offensive football is standing by with our Mike Patrick. Mike?
Chris, thanks very much. Joe Gibbs is right here, and it seems unbelievable that it's the first time since you've been here that you've had a chance to take somebody this high in the first round.
Yeah, particularly, too, Mike, the fact that it's the first time we've ever been able to say, well, we're going to get the sixth player. And so you can work on 6 guys, trying to get 6. It was exciting for us, and it was a new position for us. I was excited about being in that position, I'll tell you that.
Desmond Howard's certainly a quality pick. Some people will say, is his size going to be a problem, as small as he is playing in the tough NFC East?
Well, we got Gary Clark on our team, and I think we like Gary Clark a lot. And he's shown that he can be as good, just as good as anybody, really, playing at this level. We got Art Monk is a little bigger, and we got in the middle Ricky Sanders. We like all of them. I think, we're not worried about size. I think Desmond's shown when you can play at Michigan in that league, I think you can play with the Redskins.
Of course, you just named 3 quality wide receivers that you have on your roster that you expect to play for quite a while, but this team has always drafted for the future, not tomorrow.
Well, I think, we were looking at a situation here trying to find somebody that really, when you pick that high, you want somebody preferably. Normally, if you give us enough time, we'll find a hole in anybody. But in this case, we couldn't find holes in Desmond, so we were going to try and pick a player that we really, picking that high, was a real quality guy that we felt like would have a chance to really come in and do a great job for us, the Redskins. And I don't. We do have very good receivers on our team. I'd rather work with that problem, though, and we've had that before at other positions, and that's a good problem to have. I don't think any of the guys that are here now are going to worry about this because they're all very confident in themselves, and I don't think Desmond's going to worry about it because I've seen some of his comments. I think he'd be coming in the right way, just looking to help our football team.
All right, Joe, thanks very much. Congratulations on the pick. I know he'll help the Redskins.
Well, thanks. We're excited, Mike.
And let's go to Desmond right now. He's with Andrea Kramer. Andrea?
Thanks a lot, Mike. Well, there's your new head coach there talking about you. He's saying that he's not worried that there's too much depth now in the Redskins. How do you feel about coming in where you have 3 receivers, the caliber of Monk, Clark, and Sanders?
I feel great about coming into a situation like this. I think I can learn a lot from these guys. They can be my mentors just like the individuals were at Michigan.
How do you think you're going to handle how physical the NFC East is? I mean, unfortunately, we hear about Andre Waters from the Eagles. He's got a reputation as a bit of a headhunter, maybe deservedly so. How will you handle the physicalness of that division?
I don't worry about those things. I don't let them get to me. I think that Coach Gibbs said it best when he said, playing in Michigan, you're playing against some of the top competitors in the nation. So if you can play there and excel, I think you can play in the NFL and do a pretty good job.
Okay, thanks very much, Desmond. Right now, let's go back to New York.
All right, Andrea and Desmond and folks, Joe Gibbs, very happy. Pittsburgh Steelers, you got to think they might look running back like Vaughn Dunbar. That's the phone conversation. The card is up. But what Joe had, we all had that. We don't get dinners on this one if it's right.
No, we don't. But the fact is I think you have to, you sit down, you look at teams, and the needs are at running back for the Steelers.
With the 11th pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Leon Searcy,
like we said,
tackle, University of Miami.
Like we said, we don't win dinners on this one.
Another need is somebody to block for those running backs.
Well, Leon Searcy, an outstanding player from Miami, originally thought was coveted by the old athletic director at Miami, Sam
Sam Jankovic, but it was now with New England.
But so the Steelers go with an offensive lineman. So now that's 3 offensive linemen that have gone in the top 11. And Mel, is this a bit of a surprise that they don't go running back?
I don't think so, Chris. I think they need a left guard desperately. Certainly a running back would have filled the void, but they may be able to get a Derek Moore from Northeast Oklahoma in round 2. Leon Searcy maybe wasn't expected to be there. Everybody thought he would go to New England earlier. When they traded down, that allowed him to slide to Pittsburgh, who needs to plug in a left guard as a starter immediately. Leon Searcy played a left tackle spot for Miami in that pro-style offense, so he's experienced in pass protection, had to go up during his career against the likes of Hawkins and Cortez Kennedy, Jerome Brown, so you know he can go against top players and handle them in one-on-one situations. He projects inside the guard. He played that position earlier in his career, and he's a guy that they figure coming out of Miami will be able to step in immediately as a rookie and start at left guard, and also signability factor for the Steelers. A bit of a conservative organization, you have to say. Running back Vaughn Dunbar in the first round, economically not as sound as maybe going left guard. With Searcy, you can come in immediately, go through the mini camps, and be in training camp on time, something you have to wonder about when you talk about running backs in this day and age of your long holdouts.
The Miami Dolphins are next up on the clock, Mel. Their second first-round selection. Their first pick was Troy Vincent. And after the Dolphins, the Dallas Cowboys. We usually hear from them by now. And there's our War Room cam. Jimmy, we're watching. We'll be back.
Sometimes I dream that he is me. You got to see that's how I dream to be. A dream I move. A dream I groove. Like Mike.
Working across teams is tough, but Asana helps you handle it. That's because Asana is where humans and AI coordinate work together. AI can spot roadblocks and assign work in a snap, so everything and everyone stays on track. That's how work gets handled. That's Asana. Visit us at asana.com. That's ASANA.com.
If I could be like Mike, I'm gonna be like Mike. If I could be like Mike, be like Mike. If I could be like Mike, be like.
Welcome back to the draft in New York City. The Steelers have just selected Leon Searcy, the offensive lineman out of Miami. Hurricanes, no stranger to the first round. If you look back at the last 6 years, Searcy becomes the 12th Miami player to go in the first round. By far the most of any school. All those national championships are not an accident. They could get a 13th before the first round is over with Darrell Williams, the fine defensive back. The Steelers get that solid citizen they like so much in Leon Searcy. Meanwhile, a team in the division, the Cleveland Browns, get the solid citizen they like so much in Stanford running back Tommy Vardell. You have to feel great about what the Browns believe about your ability, because it's not exactly like they're drafting a real need. They do have running backs there.
Yeah, I'm real happy that they consider me the best athlete on the board, because that's how I understood they were going to pick. They showed some interest early and really backed off toward the end, so it's a big surprise. I'm real excited.
Chris, I think the Browns made a great choice, and if you're a Cleveland Brown fan like my family is in Crestline, Ohio, they've got to be happy today. But I think this is what you bring to the table at Cleveland. Because of the offense at Stanford, you played the fullback in the eye, you can block. You played the tailback in the eye against California, you can be that type of back. But you also played the split back, and you're a good receiver. I think the offense has really helped you and will benefit the Cleveland Browns. What do you feel like that's your best attribute?
I think the versatility aspect, what you said. One real nice thing, we played under a pro system. Our offense was a pro set offense, so we're used to a lot of different formations, having to read the different defensive fronts and everything, and it really has turned out to be an advantage.
Bill Walsh told me on Monday, Chris, that if he had a first choice, this is the young man that he would take, and that's quite a compliment.
A lot of teams would like this guy. Now, one of the things, Tommy, NFL teams do leading up to a pick, well, they probe and they ask all kinds of questions about everything to do with your personality. They did bring up the question of your faith, Christian Scientist, and what impact that might have, because some people of your faith do not accept medication for pain, do not accept needles. Is that a concern for any team you talked with?
It wasn't. It was a concern at the beginning. The owners and people wanted to know because it's a big investment. But it wasn't a concern going into the draft. It hasn't been an issue. Growing up playing football, I played football for 15 years. It's only been an aid to me, and it wasn't a problem at all.
All right, well, congratulations. Good luck in Cleveland. Also very happy for his former blocker, Bob Whitfield, is headed to the Falcons. Says Glanville and Whitfield are a great match. Whitfield's a different guy, fellas. Actually, we're going to take a break right here. We'll continue with more of the Fast and Furious draft in a minute.
Is there a player who means more to his team than Dan Marino does to Miami? For an NFL record 9th straight year, Marino threw at least 20 touchdown passes. But Don Shula's perennial problem is with defense. Once again in 91, the Dolphins were among the worst in the NFL at stopping opposing ball carriers. Plays like this one happen much too infrequently. The Dolphins finished near the bottom in takeaways with 21. Last year's number 1 Randall Hill ran himself out of Miami and into Phoenix in return for this year's first-round pick. The Miami Dolphins last year ranked 25th in total defense. They allowed 4.6 yards a carry, which is the worst in the National Football League. With one of his first-round selections, Don Shula got a gift. He got Troy Vincent, cornerback, Wisconsin, to be the first-round pick and the number 7 overall. Now he has the number 12 pick overall, and you got to think he's got to go defensive line. Now, the question is, guys, who along that defensive line? You've got Spellman from Ohio State. You got Johnson from Michigan State. You have Marco Coleman, who's a pass rusher, Robert Porcher. I mean, it depends who that, but you got to think D-line, don't you guys?
Chester McLaughlin is also along that list. I think that they've also addressed, I think they'll go D-line, of course, but I think they've also addressed 3 problems so far in this first round. They've got an outstanding return guy. Watching Troy Vincent return kicks, he will not fair catch the football. That's something that Joe loves. But yeah, I think now you start to build that front 7. You get a guy who can go after the passer and who will double as a guy who will protect Offerdahl and maybe keep him healthy during the course of the year.
You know, Tommy, I think we talked about Bill Johnson being possibly one of the guys they might take. I would have to think that Bill Johnson does not fit in right now in the Miami Dolphins. He's going to have surgery on, or he might not have to have surgery on that knee, but he did have a problem with that knee. They don't need a guy 2 years from now to come in and play for him. They need an impact player right now. That's why, you know, it's possibly Spellman, possibly McLaughlin. Those would be the 2 that I would guess at this particular time might be the pick.
Well, Johnson had a problem, fell down a flight of stairs, so that's why the recent knee problem. And they really do need clarification, really. That's a risk at this point if teams haven't examined him personally. Defensive lineman on your board. Do you have a selection here, or could there be 2 or 3 of them?
At this point, Chris, what I look at is who the best football player is. And I think when you look at it, sure, Chet McLaughlin is, but he's somewhat of a gamble at this point. I think what the Dolphins have to look at is the guy that everybody had associated with their pick at 7, Alonzo Spellman, defensive end, Ohio State, who was viewed as somewhat of a gamble. He's a guy with great physical ability, didn't take over a game on a regular basis. The other guy you consider probably one of the best football players in the draft, Marco Coleman from Georgia Tech. Here's the opposite of a Spellman. Here you have a guy who may be an overachiever type. He doesn't have the great 40 time like Alonzo Spellman, doesn't have the tremendous size. All he does is go out on that football field and just dominate and take over games and whip guys who have already been taken in the draft like a Bob Whitfield. So I think your debate here is, do you take the athlete in Spellman or the better football player in Marco Coleman?
Their defensive line, let's look at what the Dolphins have. And remember, Don Shula's got to be a little gun-shy. He's used high-round picks in recent years for Eric Kummerow, who never panned out. John Bosa, who had the knee problem, never really panned out. Here's their defensive line as it stands going into this pick, with Oglesby and Turner and Cross, who's a good defensive end. Gerald Nichols, the former Jet, Tim Downey. But obviously, they need impact player. Cross can be at times, was in one year, wasn't so much last year. But the Dolphins, think about that AFC East now. the Buffalo Bills still have the best talent of anyone probably in the entire conference. But yet, after their second straight Super Bowl loss, if they fall some to the Jets and Miami, those sort of teams able to slide up, and how is Miami going to move up? Got to improve the defense.
Well, you know, Chris, one thing that Teddy Marchibroda told me flat out, he said, if the Miami Dolphins get themselves a quality pass rusher on defense, they automatically become a bona fide problem for that AFC East. Now, Coach Marchibroda had to, as the offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills, had to face him twice a year. He knows exactly what that football team is capable of doing, and he saw that if they get that one guy, they automatically jump right up and become a major problem for him. And Teddy's seen it as well as anybody.
I tell you what, I think the reason the Dolphins are taking almost all of their 15 minutes here, and they've got about a minute and a half to go, is that there is legitimately a lot of debate. Spellman and McLaughlin, you put down, but Mel, I think it might be Porsche or Marco Coleman. May not be rated as high, but less of a, quote, gamble.
I think so. I think Marco Coleman, football player-wise, when we talked about Tommy Vardell being a great pick, so is Marco Coleman. He's just productive. You have to throw out those computer numbers sometime and just draft a football player. They already have Troy Vincent's a great athlete. Why not take a Marco Coleman over an Alonzo Spellman?
We say Coleman or Porsche. Let's see what the pick is.
With the 12th choice, the Miami Dolphins have selected Marco Coleman, linebacker, Georgia Tech. Dallas is next up.
And there's Marco Coleman from Georgia Tech. Played for Bobby Ross, who's now coach of the Chargers. I'm sure he's a proud guy right now. Would have liked to be able to draft his player. And I'll tell you, in years, the reason we're here with Marco Coleman, he was going to be our, quote, bubble man. Now, if you've watched our draft in recent years, Thurman Thomas was a bubble guy. Will he go in the first round, second round? Ended up going in the second round. Mark Spindler, I mean, we all suffered with Mark a couple of years ago. Massey, the cornerback. Well, this year, before we even got the drama out, Marco Coleman, the bubble has burst. Marco Coleman is now a first-round selection, and I tell you, it adds up for the Dolphins. Less of a gamble, as you mentioned, Mel. McLaughlin, would he get too big? Spellman, sometimes great, sometimes we don't know. But Coleman and Porsche are more of, put it down, they're the outside pass rush guy, and if they can complement Cross, he can be dangerous.
Well, PR-wise, Chris, when you look at drafting an Alonzo Spellman, a couple years ago they gambled on Eric Kumaro, same school, Ohio State. Spellman, a guy who had the physical tools but did not produce. Here with Coleman, you already had your 7th pick. You had Troy Vincent. Now you come back with a great football player, and here you see Marco Coleman. The size, he's up to about 257 now. He told me this past week he hasn't been running 5.05s, but in fact he's been running 4.8, 4.82. He gets around offensive tackles. You can move him up, move him down, use him like a Carl Mecklenburg in Denver. And for the Dolphins, who have on far too many occasions gambled on guys who are athletes, not necessarily football players, now they get a guy who fits the mold of what Don Shula wants, and that's a guy who's productive, intense. And when we hear Marco interviewed, probably in a few minutes to come, you'll hear a great kid, very well-spoken, intelligent. He can fit into any defensive structure because of the mental capacity that he brings to be able to pick up systems very quickly. And I think that's something you can't underestimate in a first-round draft choice.
And there's Marco as we look at him in Atlanta. And I'll tell you what, Marco Coleman was a linebacker at college, but he's projected as a pass-rushing defensive end, as so many of these guys are. And so now, I'll tell you what, the Miami Dolphins get exactly what they wanted. They've got the pass-rushing defensive end, and they got the corner. Speed was a question. Mel mentioned he ran about a 5, which is slow for that position, but Bobby Ross says, who cares?
Marco was one of the really productive football players that I've ever coached. He was a player that plays fast, even though in the eyes of some he may not have tested sprint-wise as well as a lot of people would like for him to have tested. He's a young man that plays fast. He plays in his football gear at a good speed and certainly well enough and quick enough and fast enough to play the game of football.
Bobby Ross ought to know, and he hopes he doesn't have to line up against him that many times, as Ross now the new head coach of the San Diego Chargers. Well, the 12th selection, that is a new record for our bubble man. That by far and away is the earliest any one of our bubble guys has gone. Marco Coleman now to the Miami Dolphins. Marco Polo was a discoverer. Marco Coleman has discovered Miami, and he's with Steve Cipher. Steve?
You're right about that, Chris. As far as crushing the bubble record, he crushed the pass sack record at the Georgia Tech as well. Marco, was it a complete surprise to you that you went number 12?
Yes, it was. I wasn't expecting to go as early as I did, considering the times that I ran in the 40 and things like that. But like Coach Ross had mentioned, I feel I do have the speed to play.
Now, in the combine in Indianapolis, you ran a 5.12 40-yard dash. What have you run for Miami since, and when did that happen, and why the difference in times?
Well, I had 3 workouts in April, and each time I ran a 4.8 or better. And I had practiced with a track coach, because I'm not a track runner. I play football, so I worked on it just like anything else. If you work on it, you get better at it.
Track coach being Lawrence Seagrave on your sprinting ability?
Yes, he helped me out a lot, and I give him a lot of credit.
Everybody's calling you a tweener. You're 6'2 3/4, about 258 pounds this morning. Do you see yourself playing in a 2-point or down on the ground in a 3-point?
Well, I've been preparing myself really for whichever I have to do. So whatever position I fit best in the scheme of the Miami Dolphins, I'll be prepared to play.
When Miami talked with you, did they talk in terms of down lineman?
Well, a little bit of both. Basically about the same way I played at Georgia Tech. So like I said, I've been preparing for whichever position I have to play.
All right, fair enough. Now, what about Brian Ransom, your representative and the agent? What's the difference for a guy who's on the bubble, could go 26th, 27th, 28th, now he's the 12th pick in the draft? What difference does that mean in terms of money?
Well, at this point, it's hard to say what the difference would be. I think it's obvious that it's going to mean more money for Marco, and we look forward to getting him in camp on time. The biggest thing is for him to prepare and be ready to play when he does get there.
All right, fair enough. One question I have to ask you. You came out as a junior. Why did you come out early?
Well, probably the same reason as all the rest of the juniors. You look forward to the competition, also the money, and and it's a lifelong dream. So at the earlier the chance, the quicker the opportunity, you just can't help but to, jump onto it.
The Georgia Tech teammate Ken Swilling last year could have come out, and many people said he would have been a first-round pick at the time. Instead, he elects to stay his senior year, and now he may be a second, third, fourth-round pick. Did that influence you?
No, it didn't. That was Ken's situation, and mine is different. We both had totally different views on, the circumstances and the situation. So what happened with him had no bearing on my decision.
All right, Marco, thank you very much. Congratulations.
So what's up to my pops in Dayton, Ohio? What's up, pops, and my brother and my sister? Yeah, I'm in the house.
Whatever he said, we double it. Thank you, Brian. All right, back to you, Chris, in New York.
All right, Steve and Marco, congratulations. 12 picks made thus far. 6 of them are underclassmen. Next up, the Dallas Cowboys. War Room Camp is smoking. The Dallas Cowboys are one of 5 teams that owns 2 first-round selections. There's the phones in New York working as the Cowboys have about 6.5 minutes left on the clock. Now, word is that the Cowboys are talking to the New England Patriots. Certainly, you don't have to have that greater memory to think back to last year when the Cowboys dealt with the Patriots for the #1 overall slot. They got Russell Maryland. New England got extra picks. Both teams were happy then. Sam Jankovic, Jimmy Johnson used to work together at Miami. It all adds up, doesn't it? And if it doesn't add up, we've got Chris Myers to show all the work. We get full credit if you show your work, Chris.
All right, well, thanks, Chris. Yeah, the reason the Patriots may be talking is they have an interest in Dana Hall, the defensive back who the 49ers like. They choose ahead of them. The Cowboys also thinking defensive back. But last year, the catchphrase in Dallas was signability that Jerry Jones pushed. This year, it may be slotting. An interesting fact is we take a peek in the draft room and see what the Cowboys are doing. Jerry Jones has said the slotting is what he obviously can't negotiate with the draft choices before they are selected on the clock. But he has told a number of players beforehand that, hey, if you're the 10th pick, you're going to get this particular price, which was the 10th pick last year, plus a 12% increase. As we watch Jimmy and Jerry looking over their draft list, they're in the draft room here, as we see across from Jimmy Johnson, is Bob Ackles, the personnel director. Now, what Jerry Jones says the slotting does is obviously it tells the player about how much money he's going to make, and across the board, if he's a 10th pick, that's what he'll get. In this case, it would be the 13th selection. So again, Jerry Jones has 10 representatives out across the country physically on location with contracts ready, and if they can't sign that player that's on the board, then they will move down to the next player, the one that they can get to agree to a contract. There may be a deal with the Colts. The Cowboys could trade down. If not, Kevin Smith is the top defensive back on the board, followed by Darrell Williams out of the University of Miami. Let's go over to Indianapolis now and Chris Mortensen.
That's right, Chris. There's a lot of activity here with the Colts. They've traded Eric Dickerson. They have a void at running back. They would love to take Von Dunbar, the Indiana running back, and they've been talking to Miami. They've been talking to Dallas in this spot. But Dallas has also got something going with the Detroit Lions because the Lions want Derek Brown, the tight end from Notre Dame.
All right, Chris, thank you. Well, they've got a chance, and you know the Lions are interested in a tight end with Dan Henning now there. Forget the run and shoot totally. We'll talk about the Lions. They don't draft to the third to bottom. But both of the big tight ends, Derek Brown and Johnny Mitchell, name you should remember from Nebraska, also interested in them, are the next two teams perhaps after Dallas, the Giants and the Jets. So maybe that's why a lot of discussion is going on right now. 34 trades or 34 slots have been traded by the Jimmy and Jerry era in Dallas, and it hasn't been that long. So war room cam, phone line, let's see on the clock's about 3 minutes and 40 seconds left for the first of two selections for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, it's interesting, all those guys that are around the country that Chris Meyer said. It sounds like Jerry Jones has more representatives than McDonald's has franchises, the way they're looking at all these players. But he mentioned, oh, there's a trade. We'll pick that up in a minute.
Details in a little bit.
It is Dallas and New England. So New England is now on the clock. So I was going to ask you, they mentioned the name Dana Hall, Mel, but it seemed too early to talk about him, but now we don't have to because New England's another story.
Well, New England needs a defensive back. Their safety position was woeful last year. Dana Hall's an interesting guy. He played cornerback at Washington, had some prior experience early in his career at that safety spot. A couple weeks ago, he was helping a friend fix his car, got his hand caught in the fan belt, and had some damage to his hand, which concerned some teams, but now they say that this morning that's not a big concern. But still, if you take Dana Hall this early, you're taking him ahead of Dale Carter, a guy that can play safety or cornerback, great productive player at Tennessee. Darrell Williams, safety at Miami, who if it goes back to Miami next year, say, probably would have been a top 5 pick. And also Kevin Smith, a cornerback from A&M. But if you're looking at Dana Hall as a safety, I don't know how you can take him ahead of Dale Carter and Darrell Williams, two of the most productive defensive backs in the country the last 2 years.
All right, here's the details of the trade, Mel. Let's listen in.
The Dallas Cowboys trade this selection, which they obtained from Minnesota, and the choice in the third round that they obtained from Minnesota, which is the 71st choice in this draft, to New England for the first choice from Atlanta, number 19 in the draft, New England's second choice, which is the 37th choice in this draft, and Atlanta's fourth round choice, which is the 104th in this draft. So Dallas trades Minnesota's first and third to New England for Atlanta's first, New England's second, and Atlanta's fourth.
All right, let us boil this down real quickly, because if I'm not mistaken, and guys correct me if I'm wrong, Dallas still has 2 first-round picks. And as I see it, they now have, what, 3 second-round picks?
3 second-round picks.
So 5 picks in the first 2 rounds, 5 picks in the first... let's see, only 5 picks in the first 40, if I add that up correctly, which means, Mel, let's go back to something you said. We had a Super 6 and a couple of interesting players like Klingler, et cetera, that will jumble. Here's New England's pick first.
Grainger knows that if you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, you go to great lengths, and sometimes heights, to ensure the power is always flowing. Which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Inchback, Paul Tagliabue, comparing red ties.
With the 13th choice in this meeting, the New England Patriots select Eugene Chung, tackle, Virginia Tech. The Giants are up next.
Well,
that makes sense.
They wanted a guard. They have two good tackles in Harlow and certainly Bruce Armstrong. Searcy, who we mentioned before, and Chung are the guys that they may be tackles, but they can also play guard. All those sacks you mentioned, Joe, came up through the middle. It's a good pick, good solid pick for New England.
It's not only a good solid pick, Fritz, it's a pick they needed. We talked about Pat Harlow. Pat Harlow has a back problem. It's become obvious. He had problems last year, had surgery before, looking at maybe surgery again. Sam wants to solidify that offensive line. He and Coach McPherson know that if they can protect Millen, they've got the quarterback they want, the offensive line will take care of itself. Defensively, they're happy. They weren't looking for a quarterback controversy, so they weren't going to go after Klingler. That makes sense. They realized that they need a guy who can help them get the 3rd and 1s and protect the passer on the 3rd and 5s. Chung's going to be the guy. He'll step in and start right away and help them out, Mel.
I wouldn't go that direction, Joe. If I'm New England and I'm trading up, Eugene Chung's a fine player. He can play guard or tackle, but when you're trading up, you have to go for an impact defensive back as a safety, a guy that can come right in and do what Ronnie Lott did. I think you take, at this point, a Dale Carter or a Darrell Williams. I think that's the area you have to improve if you're the New England Patriots, and trading up, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense at this point, simply because the two best players that will help them are the two defensive backs. Chung, a good player overall, versatile. Some question about how motivated he is to just blow people off the ball on a regular basis. And if you're looking at him as a guard, that's a projection inside from tackle to a certain extent, since he never really played that position. So a guy that would have figured, say, mid to late first round. In fact, some teams I talked to thought that maybe he could slide out of the first round into the early second round. And now you have the Patriots not only taking this guy, but trading up to acquire his services. I disagree with the choice.
I'll tell you what, you look at the depth chart of the Patriots and you're looking for the name John Hanna at guard. It's not there anymore. Their depth chart in the middle is completely different. So now that's why you will know that the Patriots are singing Wang Chung tonight. He fits right in. He can move right in and perhaps start instead of Chilton or Williams or Redding or both Greg Riccozzi, who was once upon a time a highly ranked player, but he can move right in. And I'll tell you something else that Chung going to the Patriots can give them. He is a Virginia heavyweight gold medal champion in judo in 1990. Andre Tippett is an 8 million degree black belt. You do not want to get in a fight with the New England Patriots now. They're just going to be too tough. All right, now that we've gotten that straightened out, next up on the boards, the Giants and the Jets. The gallery gods are getting ready.
All a matter of... Welcome back. We approach the halfway point of round 1 of the NFL draft. The New York Giants are on the clock, just about 10 minutes to go before they select. The Jets are next, followed by the LA Raiders. Segueing now to Fred Edelstein, our specialist in matters behind the scene. With the Raiders pick coming up, Freddie, there have been some trade talk about Steve Young and the 49ers. You've had your ear to the phone. What's the latest?
Well, Chris, the 49ers have offered Steve Young to the Raiders for a number 1 pick, a number 2 pick, and Tim Brown. Now, so far they have not heard back from the Raiders. Al Davis, I am told, was very receptive to the deal when it was offered to him, but so far, as of a little while ago, Al Davis hasn't called back. I think they can make this deal for a little bit less, maybe a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and Tim Brown, but I am told by the 49ers that if they don't make this deal for the 1, the number 16 pick, that this deal is off. Now, earlier today, the Raiders people here were telling me that they thought that this deal was going to go through. Again, so far, Al Davis has not called.
Time may be running out in the deal with the Raiders pick coming up in just a couple. That could impact that. Another guy, like Young, not totally satisfied with his situation, Bobby Humphrey. What's the status of a deal with him?
It doesn't look good for Bobby Humphrey right now. I just talked to John Beek, the general manager of the Broncos. I think he's a little bit depressed over the situation with Miami making their 2 picks. Miami is not coming forward. Atlanta made that trade up. It looks like Atlanta's not going to do it. Right now, I think that the Denver Broncos don't think they're going to move Bobby Humphrey.
Really? Yeah. I don't expect a Humphrey deal. That would be surprising.
Unless, John Beek said, unless somebody came up with something spectacular, it doesn't look good right now.
All right. Thanks a lot. Keep your ear to the phone. We'll keep you posted. The Giants are on the clock. About 8:45 to go before their pick, number 14 of the first round. The New York fans are getting ready. We'll be back.
In New York, it is New York, New York. Giants on the clock. Jets are next. Last year, the Giants went from champs to 500. Do they want to remember? Coach Ray Handley had 2 problems: defend a Super Bowl crown and a quarterback controversy. Go with veteran quarterback Bill Sims or Super Bowl hero Jeff Hostetler. The Hoss got the call, but the Giants offense couldn't call the end zone their home enough, even though Rodney Hampton raced for over 1,000 yards. For LT, it was too much to take, as the once-vaunted Giants defense blew 5 games in the fourth quarter. There it is, Tom. The Giants blew 5 games in the fourth quarter last year. The last 5 years, they've taken offense in the first round. Although they'd love a replacement for Bavaro at tight end, especially with Derek Brown from the same school, Notre Dame. Do they have to look defense here? Is it really a crumbling defense for them?
That's my feeling. I think when you look at the statistics and what happened to the Giants last year, especially with them faltering toward the end of the season and toward the end of football games, I think that it showed, their age showed. This defense has been allowed to age all at the same time. I think that they need to resurrect that front seven, and I look for them to get a guy like a Chester McGlockton and put him in there and give Leonard Marshall some help, and maybe put those 2 outside guys, and especially Lawrence Taylor, who I think is still a darn good outside linebacker, put him in some one-on-one situations where he can still make things happen.
You know, Joe, when you look at the Giants, I mean, what a difference a year makes. Now, last year they're coming back trying to defend their title. Now, they may be the number 4 team in that division, behind the champion Washington, up-and-coming Dallas, and the Philadelphia Eagles with a healthy Randall. They got to make a move.
They realize that, Chris, and I don't think offensively is where they have to make the move. I think they have to go to the defensive side of the ball, and they have to try and get some defensive line help. Lawrence Taylor, this is going to be Lawrence Taylor's last year as a New York Giant or in football. Put that down. He's going to be gone. Carl Banks has unsigned. You don't know whether or not he's going to be there. So you've got your 2 big pass rushers on the outside. Leonard Marshall certainly needs some help, as Tommy mentioned. I think they have to go to the defensive side of the ball, especially considering the division that they're playing in, Chris. They know that they've got to put pressure on the quarterbacks. And, you know, world champion Washington Redskins, everybody's going to point towards them again. They got to get some pressure on Rippon if they want to compete.
All right, the rumbling has begun with the gallery gods because the Giants have made the pick. Let's go up to the commissioner.
With the 14th pick, the New York Giants select Derek Brown, tight end, Notre Dame.
Well, they like that because he's a guy that you're going to see what kind of production he has next year. And I wonder, I don't think George Young really cares that much who's right behind him, except that the team right behind him are the New York Jets, playing in the same stadium, had the same record, except they made the playoffs and they're going one way. The Giants didn't and made the other. And I think if he didn't take Derek Brown, the Jets would have taken Derek Brown. I wonder if that influenced at all because of who the team was.
No, I really don't believe that's going to happen. I think we saw it with the Klingler move in Cincinnati, which I don't think we've heard the last of him yet. That was a situation where I think Cincinnati wanted a player that they could make some deals with. The Giants, obviously, when you think of the New York Giants, you don't think of speed wide receivers. You think of the tight end position. They've been void in that area for the last couple of years, ever since Mark Bavaro has not been able to play for them. Not a bad move. I still think they're going to need help somewhere along the line defensively, but it certainly fills a big hole for them offensively. It's going to give Jeff Hostetler or Phil Simms a chance to go someplace with the football and not have to wait for the receivers to move down the field, and he can get it off quicker.
Mel, the last time the Giants had a tight end from Notre Dame, he was okay. Mark Bavaro. Now they go to the same school, they take Derek Brown. Can he be for them what Bavaro was?
They're hoping he can. Of course, Bavaro was a 4th-round pick. Here you're investing a 1st-round pick in a very deep draft for tight ends where you can get a guy in the 3rd, 4th round can play. But here's a guy that's going to fit right into their offense, give him instant production. A guy who was really underutilized in Notre Dame's scheme where they really didn't throw to the tight end that often. In fact, they used 3 tight ends at various stages of each game. But Derek Brown, big kid, can maneuver in the open field. And I think when you look at what he can do there, it brings back memories of Mark Bavaro. Downfield blocking is okay. He can improve in that area. But certainly a guy that, when you look at that Giant football team last year, Howard Cross, good blocker, but no production as a pass receiver. And now with Derek Brown, he can really complement the wide receivers with the Giants, who aren't top flight receivers, but certainly can get the job done and give them some diversification now that they did not have last year. When Hostetler dropped back to throw, he was looking wide receivers to swing it out to Hampton. He had no threat at that tight end position, and Brown gives him now that dimension.
He can block, he can catch, he comes from a program like Notre Dame, and now he's a Giant. The Jets are up next, but before we do that, there are two tight ends we've talked about. Another guy named Johnny Mitchell from Nebraska, who, as we kick it over to Chris Fowler and Mike Gottfried, maybe, Coach, you might think that Mitchell might even be better than Brown? Clarify it.
Well, Chris, I think Johnny Mitchell is a great tight end. I think he's the nugget of this draft. I think he can do so many things, Chris. He can catch the football. There's a knock that he can't block. He has never started a game in Nebraska, but he has so much talent. You learn how to block through repetition. Whatever team takes him will teach him. He'll be a great player. I think he's the golden nugget in this draft. I like Derek Brown, but I think Johnny Mitchell can also be a fullback.
So Brown the golden domer, but Mitchell the golden nugget in your mind.
Golden nugget
Amazing
in
to
this
see a
draft.
tight end from Nebraska has got a weakness as a blocker. If that's true, why do you like the guy so much? He hasn't proven he can block yet. He may be able to.
Yeah,
What's the best thing about him?
He can block. That's a knock on him that he doesn't really deserve. They have some talent out there, and they use some other people in first down situations, and he played in passing situations, but he really has only played 2 years for Tom Osborne. I talked to those guys this week. They're very high on him, but as I said, I'll stick with it. And when we look back in this draft 5 years from now, you watch and see Johnny Mitchell contributes.
What about Derek Brown? Does he work out with the Giants?
Oh, I think it's a good choice. I think he's another strong blocker. Don't go by his statistics. If you went by Michael Jordan's statistics when he was in North Carolina as a basketball player, you wouldn't see what he's doing today. Derek Brown can catch the football. He can block. He can get down the middle, catch the ball against too deep coverage, so he's a good choice.
All right, the folks that share the stadium with the Giants, the Jets up next. Let's go back to Chris.
All right, Chris and Coach, thank you very much. The Giants now, 6 straight years, guys, have gone offense in the first round, starting with 87. You want me to sing it? Mark Ingram, he went in 87. Eric Moore in 88. Brian Williams in 89. Rodney Hampton in 90. Gerard Bunch in 91. Ray Handley says he was going to do it his way. And not so much the grind him out Parcells style. Hey, we're going to move the ball. So maybe this, again, affirmation that we're going to sink or swim and do it my way, and picking the tight end is a way to get the offense going rather than solidify the D.
Well, reinforcing a little bit what Joe said, you know, both of those quarterbacks, Phil Simms and Hostetler, are both great, short, accurate throwers. This gives them another outlet as a receiver, so a big target, somebody, whenever you're in trouble, you're going to be able to actually look around and say, here's a guy who's always going to be open, and hit him with the football.
Joe, I mean, it's a Notre Dame guy, so I know where you stand, I think.
Oh, yeah, there's no question. I believe for sure he was going to be a first-round pick, and there were enough people in the first round that needed tight ends. One of the things they mentioned about Derek Brown was the fact that he was underused at the University of Notre Dame. He'll come back, and I will as well argue with you that there was another pretty good tight end by the name of Jackson who only had 62 catches in his college career at Oklahoma. Now his name is Keith, and he's with the Philadelphia Eagles and considered all-world. Not that Derek Brown's going to jump right into that mold, but you give the kid the right opportunity to play. First of all, he comes out of a great school with a great work ethic. He knows how to play big-time football. He's been exposed to big-time football. He understands the philosophy of going out and what it's going to take to be a professional. Those are intangibles that you can't drill into a kid. He has to have them. He has it. Fits right into the Giants system. I don't think there's any question that we're going to see him start. You got to remember one other thing. The tight end position today in football is not just a one-man position. The Redskins utilize 3 and 4 different players for the tight end position. Derek Brown may have a skill that develops higher than another. They may use him more as split him out as a little tight end, put him into running attacks. Let the other guys do the blocking. The game has become all specialized. I think it'll work out very well for him and the Giants.
The Jets are next up, and the way the board works out is not exactly what they would have wanted. They may be talking a swap with San Francisco. We'll find out in a moment.
Point of fact. It takes the average person an average of 20 keys.
The Giants have selected, but the only team at Giant Stadium that made the playoffs last year, the Jets, are on the clock next. Jets, 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 Jets. Let's look back. It took OT in the last game, but a giant kick by Raul Alegre put the Jets into the playoffs for the first time since '87. Bruce Goslett's second year saw the Jets showcase one of the most versatile and powerful rushing attacks, good for 5th in the NFL. But Ken O'Brien only threw 12 touchdown passes, none to Al Toon in the regular season. Defensive coordinator Pete Carroll turned in an outstanding performance, as did his Chargers, who were among the best at stopping the run and forcing turnovers. The Jets are a team on the come, but that 8-8 mark shows some wins against some great teams and a loss to the Indianapolis Colts, the only win that they had. So they still need to find some consistency. Plus 12 in giveaway takeaway means they're on their way. They got great skill positions at the receivers. They got good running back. They're waiting for Blair Thomas to emerge. They've got outstanding physical defensive backs. They would like a linebacker, Mel. He's not there. They would like another big pass rusher to complement Lagerman. I'm not sure that they're that high on the guys that are left there. They would like a tight end. They would have liked Derek Brown. It kind of didn't fall the way for the Jets. They didn't get lucky like Shula did a little ahead.
They really didn't when you really look at it. Right now, you see Chester McLaughlin still there. The Raiders evidently high on him. We talked about Pickens maybe lasting to the Broncos pick near the end of the first round. So you can see in that top 10 some good players, McLaughlin and Pickens, still on the board. And see the defensive backs. You're going to have a run on defensive backs starting very quickly. Dale Carter, Kevin Smith. Chuck Smith is the one guy, Chris. I'll tell you, I talked about Marco Coleman earlier as being a great football player. He's a guy who can get after the quarterback. You see Williams, the #1 running back, which is debatable, either Dunbar or Tony Smith. Spellman, a guy who has a great talent but doesn't produce the results expected. But Chuck Smith, the outside linebacker of Tennessee, some people call him a projection. I call him a great football player. And I think he will be an ideal pick for a team looking to get some heat on the quarterback, be it the Jets or whoever. He's going to be one of the ultimate steals at the end of this first round or even into the second. But Johnny Mitchell's the interesting guy. Great speed, athletic ability, runs like a wide receiver, catches like a wide receiver. If you're considering Derek Brown, I don't know how you can't consider Johnny Mitchell at this point.
Well, he's a very good ball player. And the Jets, I'm going way back here, which I think I'm qualified to do here with the Jets. 20 years ago, they drafted Jerome Barkham was drafted as a wide receiver, later became a tight end. Richard Castor was once a tight end, became a wide receiver. I'm not trying to say 20 years ago to now, but a receiving tight end, a guy that can go deep, is in the Jets' heritage. Now what they got to do is find a replacement for Joe Namath, I guess. As O'Brien, he'll probably be Browning Nagel. If he looks well this summer, Nagel will be their quarterback. Mitchell may be the highest up. The Jets have the pick. They're ready in the gallery.
See, there's Wesley Walker. There's Rob Morrison, Buttle, Lance Mel.
With the 15th choice, the New York Jets select Johnny Mitchell, tight end, Nebraska.
Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company. They're one of America's largest financial services companies. Like how I'm more than just Peyton Manning. I'm also motivating Manning. When I say insurance, you say financial services. Insurance.
Financial services.
Insurance.
Financial services.
Now when I say Nationwide, you say is both. Nationwide.
Is both.
Nationwide.
Is both.
For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Investment Services Corporation, member FINRA, Columbus, Ohio.
New York becomes tight end. Wow. The Giants do one, the Jets fire back. I'll tell you what. The fans don't like it, but they don't know Johnny Mitchell. Richard Castor, Jerome Barkham, we go to history. Mel, we like the pick.
I don't see anything wrong with Johnny Mitchell. Was one of the fast risers when people started to work this guy out. At 262 pounds, he's running 4.6s. You watched him against Colorado, against Oklahoma this year, in an offense that didn't really stress the pro offense, a passing game. All he did was get downfield and make spectacular catches, run in the open field like a 195-pound wide receiver. You talk to Johnny, very well-spoken kid, very dedicated. He's out to prove to people that he's a far better blocker than he's given credit for. You see him here in the open field. Look at these moves. This is a 262-pound tight end who can beat cornerbacks man-to-man. You can move him out, flank him outside. Here his blocking ability. Turns the guy out on the running play by Nebraska. Getting downfield on a regular basis. Extending his hands to catch the football. Here's a guy who can play football. If he can turn up the intensity level as a blocker, which Johnny claims he's ready to do, he could, in some NFL teams' minds, be the ultimate tight end in this draft and be a guy that can bring to the Jets what a Kellen Winslow brought to the Chargers.
You know, I mentioned Castor and Barkham. Really, in the 80s, Mickey Schuler was a very good, productive tight end for the Jets. But he's been gone for a couple of years, and they're the catches that Boyer, that Dressel had with the Chiefs. Pat was no day at the beach with Indianapolis. I mean, they don't have a lot there. All of a sudden, as they found that Buffalo can do by pressuring opposing defenses in that division, by running or passing, you now have Toon, Rob Moore, Johnny Mitchell to catch the ball. If Browning Nagel can deliver it, the Jets can put a lot of pressure and some heat on the Buffalo Bills. We'll be back in New York with the Raiders pick in a moment. So as we said before, New York has become tight end. Let's go over to Chris Fowler and company.
All right, Chris, Raiders up next, about 10.5 minutes before their pick. Fred Edelstein rejoins us now. Freddie, the Raiders were talking Steve Young trade with the Niners. Where does that stand?
Well, Chris, I just got off the phone with Carmen Policy, the president of the 49ers, and he tells me that this trade is dead. I think the 49ers are a little bit upset. I think Al Davis could have had Steve Young for pretty much a song when you consider a franchise quarterback, and he is refusing to give up this #1 pick. And the 49ers are now saying, and I think they're in a little bit of a huff, that they're not trading any of their quarterbacks.
So once again, the quarterback eludes Al Davis and the Raiders. Are they still looking elsewhere?
Well, I don't know if they're looking elsewhere, but again, I think that the nerves are a little bit frayed on the 49ers side, and sometimes the 49ers and the Raiders don't have a good relationship, and I think right now the 49ers-Raider relationship is not very good at all.
All right, Fred, back to Mike Gottfried now. Your guy, Johnny Mitchell, the golden nugget of the draft, goes to the Jets for the 15th pick. Great situation for him, do you think?
Oh, I think it's great with Bruce Coslet and the offense that the Bengals used to run. The Jets are running now the one-back offense. I think it's perfect for him. They'll move him around in the offense to be the receiver they need. He can block. He'll be just a great player. So he'll be mined in New York.
One other aspect with Johnny Mitchell, he's a very quotable guy, a little bit of a cocky guy, and the New York tabloids will listen if Mr. Mitchell wants to say things.
He can back it up.
Okay. Raiders will pick us up next. We'll return for the first round of the NFL draft right after this.
Pick in the first round belongs to the Raiders. The Los Angeles Raiders, who earlier today completed the deal that got Eric Dickerson back to the left coast. Dickerson now a member of the Raiders to run with Marcus Allen and Nick Bell. It cost them a 4th-round pick and an 8th-round pick, and probably a reduction in salary for Eric Dickerson, who was making about $3 million a year with the Colts. Marcus made only 1.1 last year with the Raiders, but the money isn't the issue. Dickerson, Marcus, Bell behind a good offensive line. They hope that they get even a half. They hope they get from Dickerson what they would have out of Bo Jackson, a half a productive season, but over the 16 games. The Raiders, they made the playoffs last year, but they're a team in flux, let's remember. The end was not so sweet for Art Shell last season as he watched his Raiders drop their last 4 games, including the playoffs. Jay Schrader was inconsistent and injured. In his place, #1 pick Todd Marinovich threw 3 TD passes in his first ever start. But 1 week later, 4 INTs and a wild card loss to the Chiefs. But the Silver and Black did win the grand prize in Plan B. Ronnie Lott's 8 interceptions led the NFL. So the Raiders next up on the clock, and a 9-7 record. You know, they got the question with Todd Marinovich. Will he be their quarterback? It looks like now Steve Young deal. You heard Freddie Edelstein say that that is not going to happen. And so Eric Dickerson, getting back to that for a moment, kind of fills the bill that they hope Roger Craig would do last year. Now, what?
I'm shaking my head here. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, poor Marcus Allen. This guy here has been probably the best, most versatile back in football. And first he's got to deal with Bo. Now he's got to deal with Eric back there. I mean, when is this guy finally going to get the respect that he deserves from an organization that has really underpaid him for a long time? Marcus Allen just can't, you know, just because he isn't quite what he used to be, still is the featured back out there. They keep bringing people in, Bell and Dickerson and Jackson. Marcus Allen should be the guy that's going to carry and has carried that offense for a long time. I don't know whether running backs are the problems for the Los Angeles Raiders on offense. I still think the Raiders got to look somewhere in this draft for somebody who can stand behind the center and win some football games for him and get the ball down the field to some football players.
Yeah, Joe, I think that Marcus Allen also should be the guy who's going to carry the load, but I think to maximize his potential at this point in his career, I think that Al Davis and Art Shell feel that they need a guy to back him up at least half the season. That guy was Bo Jackson. I don't think that he should look at it as a situation where something is being taken away from him. I think he's being given an extra few years in his career because he's not taking the punishment that he took earlier.
Tommy, that's the same thing they sold him with Bo Jackson. Geez, Marcus, look at it this way. Bo will carry the ball some of the time. You come in. At this rate, Marcus Allen, we're going to be here at the year 2000, and Marcus Allen's still going to be a Los Angeles Raider. I think, by the way, the Raiders going from the offensive side to the defensive side could be Steve Israel here. I mean, defensive back is an area where they can certainly use some help, and there's enough of them on the board, like Mel said.
Well,
here comes the run.
I would think, as I look at their defense, that they've got good DBs, but, you know, they're getting long in the tooth up front, especially in the middle, and a guy we all know and love, Bob Golick. Could this be the place that Chester McGlockton goes? Possibly. Let's check in with Chris Myers, who has some thoughts. Chris?
Yeah, that is one theory, Chris. A club official said he's a great physical defensive lineman. The question about him is bad attitude, but that, of course, never steers Al Davis away. So McGlockton could be, although the Raiders think he's a bright player, just a guy who needs to be motivated. You have to push the right buttons with him, and that might scare other teams like the Miami Dolphins, but it doesn't scare Al Davis. He's more noted for drafting touchdown makers than Tim Brown, so Carl Pickens might be a choice here, but it looks like Chester McGlockton is somebody the Raiders are considering.
Chris, that would make sense. And Chester is on. Do we have a shot? I think he's on the phone with the Raiders right now. Well, then, we may have guessed correctly. You know, the Raiders really need to address their linebacker spot. But guess what? Just like the Jets wanted another linebacker, this just simply is not the draft for linebackers. That would be their place. But there isn't a player that high up. And really, as we mentioned with our friend Bob Golick, they had a tough time. They were 22nd against the rush last year, defending the rush with the Raiders. Big size, that's never scared the Raiders. If there's a question about a guy with a quote, and we say this quote, questionable attitude, I think it's safe to say the Raiders have never been worried about that. You figure play a Raider football and you can get them going. And no matter how big Chester McGlockton is, he isn't as big as the head coach, Art Shell. So if there's any problem, that'll get ironed out right away. Does McGlockton make sense, Mel?
I think at this point in the draft he does, Chris. You're looking at a guy that was projected at one time as maybe a top 15 pick, top 10 pick, a guy that physically probably had top pick ability up there with Empman and Gilbert. The only thing that pushed him down this far, and the reason you're getting a 340-pound destroyer with 5.05 speed is because of the fact that at Clemson they rotate their linemen. Chester wasn't a guy who was considered a great practice player, and some teams got off of him a little bit. And for the Giants, because Derek Brown was there, they had to go that direction, allowing McGlockton to slide down to the Raiders, which may have influenced that trade with Steve Young, one of the reasons Davis wanted to hold on to that choice.
Well, he comes from Clemson, and our colleague, Dr. Z, Paul Zimmerman, had in Sports Illustrated this week, McGlockton is another Perry. But the question is, which one? Is it Michael Dean, one of the best nose tackles anywhere? Or is it the Fridge, who is okay, but certainly didn't pan out the way his brother did? Could McGlockton be just too big, or is he a fast guy that you think could be a force?
Well, at the weight that he's at right now, he's an animal on the football field. I mean, he can really go after it. You watch this kid, you'll see him pick up fumbles and run them 70 yards. You see him intercepting a pass and going 40 yards down the football field, running it into the end zone. So he doesn't have a problem right now. But when you consider a kid is 21, 22, 23 years old and they weigh 330, you don't know what's going to happen as they get into the NFL. But I think, as you said, it's a problem maybe that could be controlled by the coach.
Well, and the Raiders, certainly, they like size, they like speed. I mean, those are two things that they certainly have always looked at. They got size.
And you got Howie Long. I mean, you got to wonder, how long is Howie going to be able to keep on playing? I think they use that dominant defensive line.
Here's the pick, Joe. Let's check out the commissioner.
With the 16th choice, the Los Angeles Raiders select Chester McGlockton, defensive tackle, Clemson.
It's just such a happy day for any one of these guys.
It's really interesting. I think you really hit the nail on the head with this. Every one of the draft choices, other than David Klingler, who is still in a state of shock with Lee Steinberg somewhere on the left coast, it seems like every one of these draft choices has just been elated with the fact that they're going to a football team that they feel like they can contribute to, and the football team is very satisfied. I really think you coined it so well. This is a very happy day, not only for the teams, but also for the young men that are having the chance to go there.
Well, McGlockton is a Raider, and I'll tell you what, you want to go with a team with an attitude, that's for sure is where he's on his way. And we all root for him, because if he proves to be as fast and as big as he is, he could be a force. Next up, the Falcons. We'll be back.
At the NCAA Foundation, we care about the lives of all of our college and university students. That's why, with help from Anheuser-Busch, we're offering grants through our Choices program. These grants are used to provide funding for campus-wide alcohol education programs. The goal is to eliminate underage drinking and encourage responsible decision-making in all aspects of our students' lives. Working together as a team, we can make a difference.
A message from Anheuser-Busch and the NCAA Foundation.
There's a way to virtually guarantee a safer suspension system. A way to eliminate pulling, shaking, and loss of control. It's the suspension technology of Midas. Diagnostic tools so advanced, they can pinpoint the problem. So you know your car's fixed, absolutely right. And for a limited time, buy one Shocker strut, get the second for 50% off. For a safer suspension, nobody beats Midas.
Why do sports fans turn to ESPN first? Because baseball is always...
in your face. In your face.
In your face.
ESPN, ESPN, your face.
All right, welcome back to the draft, and Chester McLaughlin has just gone with the first pick of the Los Angeles Raiders. Atlanta up with their second first-round pick. There's Chester with the Raiders cap. It's good that they have all these caps available. It's very nice. But, Mel, McLaughlin, I mean, you have him very high on your board, so obviously you think he's going to be a great pro.
Potentially he can be as good as Entman or Gilbert. I talked to Kenny Hatfield, his coach at Clemson. He told me he had never been around a defensive lineman that could separate from a blocker and close on the quarterback as quickly as Chester McLaughlin at 330 pounds is capable of doing. Watch him here. Look at that speed. This is 330, 335 pounds we're talking about here. A guy that moves exceptionally well, is aggressive, upfield player. Number 91 here, getting around that right tackle in for the sack against NC State. And what Clemson does not allow their players to do is play 60 minutes. They like to rotate, and that's the system. There's nothing you're going to do about it. That's the way Clemson, goes about attacking people in the ACC, and they do it very well. Naturally, the weight is a concern. He has to maintain it right around 325. Some teams would prefer him be around 315, 320. Either way, though, at this point in the draft, a guy that has as good as physical tools as an Empton or a Gilbert, certainly where the Raiders are picking at 16, you can't argue with the choice.
I'll tell you what else the Raiders are doing. They're stockpiling first-round picks. McLaughlin and Dickerson give them number 8 and number 9 now on the roster that are first-round selections. So that's they may lead the league in first-round picks. Atlanta has their second first-round pick right now. Earlier on, they moved up to get Bob Whitfield, moving up in a deal with New England. Now this is their pick that they've had, the 17th selection, one that they got from the Packers for Brett Favre. They can't believe Vaughn Dunbar is still there. Gary Danielson, is that the feeling down there right now?
Oh, that's who I believe they should take. I mean, I think Vaughn Dunbar is sitting there. I talked to Jerry Glanville this morning. The word he gave me, unless it was a good sell job, they were willing to give up 2 number 1s for Vaughn Dunbar. Now he's sitting there. We just heard, though, that they're going to make a trade with Dallas and move down. They're going to move down back to that number 19 spot that New England has and pick up that spot with a trade with Dallas, and they're also going to pick up a 4th spot. I think some of the players on the board that are still available, they think will be there in the 19th spot. Dale Carter, Dana Hall to fill that need at the defensive backfield spot, and it must be that pressing need in the backfield spot that is good, and Chris Smith also, that allows them to move down and pick up a later draft choice in the 4th round, Chris.
Well, Gary, as you said, Atlanta always moving left and right. I think that they know. Well, here's the trade. Let's pick that up. Hold on a second.
Details will follow. Dallas is presently on the clock.
So that trade that Gary Danielson just spoke about has happened. It is for Dallas. So the Cowboys have got to be looking for that DB right here. Either Darrell Williams or Kevin Smith. I would think it's one of those 2 guys.
I'll tell you, I think Dale Carter is one of the best defensive backs in the country. I think when you're Dallas, you're worrying about the 49ers. We know the 49ers want defensive backs, and you have Kevin Smith, you have Dale Carter, Darrell Williams, Dana Hall, all these DBs. You're going to see a run on that position. You're going to see Vaughn Dunbar, Tony Smith go as well. I think Atlanta knows by moving down 2 spots, they're still going to get a Dunbar or a Tony Smith. Dallas had to move ahead of Frisco to guarantee the acquisition of one of those defensive backs.
Well, San Francisco, yes, but the thing is for Atlanta, I mean, if they're not totally sold on Dunbar, Tony Smith will be there, as you say. So they only moved 2 slots down. Here's the details on the trade. Jim Stieg, your trade man.
Okay, the trade involving this selection choice, Atlanta trades this choice, which they obtained from Philadelphia, and the 5th round choice they obtained from New England, which is the 120th choice in the draft, for the 2 selection choices Dallas had previously obtained from Atlanta, the 19th choice in the 1st round, and the 4th round choice from Atlanta, which is the 104th choice. So Atlanta trades Philadelphia's number 1 and New England's 5th for Atlanta's own number 1 and Atlanta's own number 4.
Well, basically, there'll be a quiz on that in a couple of hours. Basically, what happens is Atlanta, to go down 2 spots, as I get it, they get a 4 for a 5. Is that essentially right? Forget Philly, Green Bay. It's all getting confusing now. It's just a smokescreen anyway. So Atlanta goes down from 17 to 19. Dallas now up. And, I mean, this is a team about to make, they've made quantum leaps the last couple of years. But this is a team about to make the next move they feel if they get corners.
You know, Chris, the last couple of years, we've seen the Dallas Cowboys just really positioning and stockpiling draft choices, making a lot of trades to get those draft choices. It's been fairly easy the last couple of years for Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones because there was so much need on that football team. Now we're in a situation where that particular football team has got to make some key acquisitions to help them out. You see them in the war room. You see Jerry Jones standing there, Jimmy Johnson on his right on the phone. They've sort of made the decision they want to go with. I believe, and well, it's made. There's no doubt about it. He's taken a drink. They shook their hands.
They're all set.
It's absolutely positive the fact that they have taken probably a defensive back here, and that's going to be very critical for them because they realize that the Redskins are sitting there in that division. They can't beat the Redskins. They aren't going to win a Super Bowl, and now they have to make very careful choices of the people they want. Going to have to be a defensive back. Smith, Hall, Williams, you pick them. It's going to be one of them.
Let's go to Chris Myers, who is lurking somewhere outside our war room camp.
The Los Angeles Raiders made the trade to get a defensive back, obviously. Kevin Smith is the corner they like. They also like Darrell Williams and Dale Carter at safety. Let's take a peek back in the draft room because the celebration and high-fiving that was going on indicated that Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson made the deal.
You probably know Vistaprint for business cards, but did you know we print everything you need to get your brand in front of your fans? We print banners and signs that help your business stand out. We print postcards and flyers that get people talking. And we print must-have merch like tote bags, t-shirts, and water bottles. Whether you want a few or a few thousand, we print on everything so that customers can go from noticing your brand to falling in love with it. Right now, new customers can get 20% off with code NEW20. Because if you need it, we print it at Vistaprint.com.
With the player, who we still don't know who that officially is, in the white shirt, who was in there before standing up, Mike McCoy, vice president and the key finance guy. And Jerry had the situation set up where if he got to that player and he didn't agree to the terms of the contract, yes or no, he would say to the player. If the player says no, he goes, thank you, I'm moving on to the next guy who we had. So that's probably why they had Kevin Smith, Williams, or Carter. So they have completed their contract. We'll come back when they announce their player. Let's go back to Chris Berman in New York.
All right, Chris, we look at War Room Cam there. I couldn't tell if they were diagramming plays on those sheets of paper, if they were writing down a list of what figure they've offered. Here's the pick right now. Well, here's the commissioner.
With the 17th pick, the Dallas Cowboys select Kevin Smith, defensive back, Texas A&M.
Well, this certainly makes sense. The second player from Texas A&M to go today, Coriat, going with the 2nd overall pick to the Colts. This is a well-traveled pick. It was Philly's, it became Green Bay's, it became Atlanta's, now it's Dallas's, and in a pick that's so well-traveled, they've got Kevin Smith, and this certainly, not only is he an excellent player, and probably a pretty good pick at this slot, that's a need pick for Dallas.
Well, he's the cornerback, Chris. You know, he's the only pure corner still there. Dale Carter was somewhat of a projection. Darrell Williams, a pure safety. Dana Hall moving from corner to safety. But Kevin Smith led the Southwest Conference with 20 career interceptions. You see his size there. Also a guy that's been productive. Like I say, with that interception, shows the hands there, which is something very important for defensive backs. A lot of DBs get their hands on the football, come away with an incompletion. This kid, 20 career pass thefts during his college stay at Texas A&M, and a guy that's all over the field, not only in this capacity, he's also a pretty good return man as well. And a guy that when you match him up against opposing team's top wide receiver, he's capable of shutting that guy down. Dallas didn't have that. They need that now, and certainly Dallas is going to look to draft not only Kevin Smith, but probably at least 2 other defensive backs in the first 3-4 rounds.
As I remember now, Dallas has the 2 first-round picks, and they got 3 picks in the second round, so 5 in the top 40, which costs a lot of money. But Dallas may have saved themselves some money. They would have looked at Kevin Smith with the 13th pick. They slide down 4 spots to 17, still get their guy, save a little bit, then now they'll be able to add to those other high picks that they're about to have. The 49ers are next on the clock. We'll be back.
Sometimes I dream that he is me. You got to see that's how I dream to be. A dream I move, a dream I groove.
Like Mike, if I could be like Mike, I'm gonna be like Mike. If I could be like Mike, be like Mike. If I could be like Mike, be like.
It began not with a clean sheet of paper, but with a 75-year history. A history of building automobiles that make the most of the driver's skill. Because how you drive is as important as what you drive, BMW introduces a car that could improve both. The BMW 325iS Coupe. Casio presents some of the hottest new faces in sports. He's 7'1", standing still, but when he lifts off, that's another story. He goes basket to basket in seconds flat. And energy, he's got plenty to burn. David Robinson and Casio, because Casio watches do more than keep time. They keep you ahead of the game.
A little flimsy. It's made of cardboard and cotton. Yet no other headgear comes more strongly recommended by the NFL.
Welcome back. The 49ers are up next, 10-20 to pick in their first round. Frustrated, very frustrated earlier about their inability to make a deal with the Raiders on Steve Young. Fred Edelstein rejoins us. Now with this pick, are